Chapter 1126. Your Majesty, swords and knives have no eyes. The battle at the city gate is intense. If something happens to you, how are we going to live? Xiong Jin Shui had a bitter expression and tried to persuade him. Your Majesty, please spare me. Can I go and find out the situation for you? Scram! Li Qiqian was in a good mood. Even though he was annoyed by the nagging, he only kicked Xiong Jin Shui. Xiong Jin Shui cried out and staggered 2 steps before stabilizing himself. He did not dare to say anything else and quickly followed Li Qiqian to arrange for Your Majesty to leave the palace. Now that the battle was intense, it was not a small matter for the emperor to leave the palace. No one could guarantee that there were no Tatars spies in the capital. If something happened to Your Majesty, they would not be able to pay for it, even if all of their families were killed. The eunuchs and guards bitterly went to prepare. They carefully and cautiously went to prepare the carriages and horses. The imperial carriage and the guards left the palace gate and went straight to the north gate. Jiziyu was counting the casualties and setting up defenses. Suddenly, he heard someone report that the emperor had arrived. He could not help but frown. He brought his followers and walked down the city gate tower. From afar, he bowed to Li Qiqian, Your Majesty. No need for formalities. You have worked hard in this battle. How is the situation? Did the battle ease up after the troops joined in? Jiziyu honestly nodded his head. It can indeed alleviate some of the problems, but these people come from all over the world. Their training methods are different, and some of the soldiers do not even understand the normal language of the great Zhou Empire. It is not easy to deploy them. Li Qiqian nodded in understanding. Of course, there was nothing we could do about it. Luckily, we have more people. If the Tatans suddenly sent a large number of troops, we would not be flustered because of a lack of manpower. I also know that you're used to leading the Dragon Legion Corps. Unfortunately, the Dragon Legion Corps is trapped, and at least half of them are dead. I also know how you feel, but as the ruler of a country, you have to make a choice. Not everyone will be satisfied. When Li Qiqian said these words, Jiziyu just stood there expressionlessly with his head lowered. It seemed that he didn't hear him and didn't care if Li Qiqian could satisfy his request. Jiziyu had always been cold, and Li Qiqian was used to his reaction. Seeing that he had no intention of refuting her, she felt even more comfortable. You have made great contributions in this battle. I will definitely reward you handsomely. Li Qiqian's tone was extremely excited. Jiziyu replied calmly, I'm just doing my duty. Your Majesty really doesn't have to do this. Sigh, I know that you are wholeheartedly devoted to the country. However, just because you have noble character and unquestionable integrity doesn't mean that everyone is like that. There will always be people fishing for fame who will slander me behind my back. In the face of a national disaster, there are also many people with ulterior motives who not only refuse to help, but also keep dragging us down. Li Qiqian put his hands behind his back and slowly walked toward the city gate that was half open due to the clearing of the battlefield. Jiziyu frowned slightly and followed behind Li Qiqian. Li Qiqian said in a low voice, You have also seen what Peng Zhishi has done during this period of time. I've been really worried these days. The matters of the court are already complicated, and the Tatan people are also very stubborn. I have to raise so many troops to fight against the Tatan. I originally thought that when the people of Dazhou encountered such a national disaster, they would definitely lend a helping hand. Those large families with grain would also lend a helping hand for the safety of their own people. However, I never thought that Peng Zhishi would actually undermine me. Tell me, where did he get so much money to buy grain from the wealthy families? Didn't he use my name to swindle people outside and make those people willingly take out their money in grain? He has earned a good reputation, but I can't raise any grain here because of his schemes. Seeing the soldiers fight the Tatan with empty stomachs, I feel really uneasy. Jiziyu's voice didn't have any emotion. He just stated the facts calmly. Your Majesty, grain is indeed a big problem. If people don't eat, they will starve to death. Dead people can't fight against the Tatan. Li Qiqian choked. He was a bit angry and embarrassed, but also a bit helpless. He said so much because he didn't want Jiziyu to mention the grain. Anyone who was smart and knew how to get along with people would understand that he didn't want to talk about the grain. However, Jiziyu still said this. Li Qitian didn't even know how to respond for a moment. Seeing that Jiziyu was silently waiting for his answer, Li Qitian said, I understand. I will think of a way. Think of a way. Think of a way again. Every time this topic was brought up, Li Qitian would use this kind of excuse. However, after so many years, the food in the army still hadn't improved. The reason why the soldiers were able to hold on was because he took the lead and charged at the front like a flag. Fortunately, he had some false reputation back then and had some prestige in the army. Otherwise, how long could they hold on? Moreover, Li Qitian's distortion of Pang Zhao's story made Jiziyu almost unable to suppress his anger. Your Majesty arranged for Pang Zhao to go to the disaster area and didn't give him any grain. Pang Zhao thought of a way to get money to save the lives of the people. Shouldn't he be rewarded? Why did Pang Zhao have the ability to get money to buy grain? Why did it become Pang Zhao's fault for delaying the emperor's request for grain from the rich merchants? In the past, Jiziyu had thought that Li Qitian was a wise ruler because they fought together and experienced the cruelty of the battlefield together. They also understood the value of life and knew how important it was to overthrow Beiji. Unfortunately, things had changed with the passage of time. Back then, they started an uprising to prevent the people from suffering. Now, Li Qitian had forgotten and became the main culprit who harmed the people. Jiziyu shook his head. After sending the emperor away, he pondered for a long time and still wrote a letter to Pang Zhao. When Pang Zhao received this letter, it was already the beginning of the 3rd month. At this time, a group of people were stationed in a quiet field. The grain they bought was stored everywhere near and far. Some people who were willing to follow Pang Zhao were now patrolling near the grain carts. Pang Zhao ordered someone to arrange for the person who delivered the letter for Jiziyu to rest. He read the letter carefully and then frowned slightly, looking deep in thought. Qin Yining saw that Pang Zhao's brows were furrowed. He put down the hot tea in his hand and asked worriedly, "What's wrong? Did something happen in the capital city?" Pang Zhao shook his head hurriedly. "Nothing. It's a letter from Alan." Qin Yining raised his eyebrows. "Marquis Dingbei rarely writes to you. This time, he suddenly wrote to you. Something must have happened." After saying that, she tilted her head and looked at him. Her long hair fell smoothly behind her back, making her look more delicate. Pang Zhao was defeated by her gaze. He handed the letter to Qin Yining and muttered in a low voice, "Didn't they say that pregnancy makes one stupid? Why is my sister still so hard to fool?" Qin Yining was right beside him and naturally heard his words clearly. She looked at the letter and rolled her eyes at him. However, when she saw the content, she laughed mockingly and lost the mood to joke. "How much does your Majesty hate you?" He even said this to Marquis Dingbei. In the letter, Jiziyu reminded Pang Zhao not to return to the capital. He was afraid that once he returned, your Majesty would kill him regardless of everything. This was because the emperor's dissatisfaction and jealousy had reached an extremely serious level. He's not as talented as you and is unwilling to accept others. This kind of person has a good life. He can actually be the emperor for so many years. Pang Zhao was amused by Qin Yining's serious disdain for Li Qitian and laughed. The gloominess in his heart disappeared for a moment. "All right, what's there to be angry about? Ever since he became afraid of me, it was impossible for him to trust me. No matter what I do, it's wrong. Besides, his suspicions are not wrong. It proves that his brain is not too stupid. Although I don't want to expose him, I use the money for disaster relief. It's just that we have different standpoints." Qin Yining shook his head. As an emperor, he can't control his greed. This will cause a tragedy. It may not be too late for him to turn over a new leaf, but I don't think he will change. Pang Zhao shrugged indifferently. "It doesn't matter. Even if he is like this, what can he do to me in such a tense situation?" Qin Yining was also amused by Pang Zhao's appearance. Yes, they had made sufficient preparations. If Li Qitian wanted to do anything, he would have to see if Pang Zhao agreed or not. However, when he thought of Li Qitian's actions, Qin Yining still felt depressed. He increasingly disliked Li Qitian and concluded that if Li Qitian did not change, the common people would suffer in the future. His thoughts of overthrowing Li Qitian gradually took shape and became correct. Pang Xiao wrote a reply to Jiziyu. Although the person who delivered the letter was Jiziyu's trusted aide, it was not Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao was worried that the letter would be read by someone with ulterior motives. Therefore, he only wrote a few words in his reply and did not mention the current situation at all. As for Jiziyu, he was gradually losing patience. There was not enough food, and all the soldiers were starving. Li Qiqian, on the other hand, could not think of a solution. He even shamelessly asked the army to prepare 2 cabins. He was just short of writing an IOU to borrow. Jiziyu had been leading troops for many years and was very thorough in his analysis of war. He could make a series of judgments based on a few clues. If Pang Xiao was willing to join, he would definitely find a way to protect Pang Xiao and maintain a peaceful environment in Dezhou. However, Pang Xiao was blocked outside by Li Qitian. Even the army did not think of letting Pang Xiao come. If he spoke too much, he would only offend the emperor. In the future, if Pang Xiao was targeted, he would lose the emperor's trust and advantage. At that time, it would be impossible for him to speak up for Pang Xiao. At this time, Pang Xiao had already traveled 60% of the way. The number of people who were willing to follow Pang Xiao along the way was simply beyond Qin Yining's expectations. Pang Xiao ordered people to make a register so that it would be easier to record everyone's age and family situation. Qin Yining's morning sickness was getting more and more serious. Even eating thin porridge would make him feel disgusted. Bing Tang diligently nursed Qin Yining back to health. Mu Jinghu stayed by Pang Xiao's side all day long to prevent him from being plotted against. Chapter 11:27. Mu Jinghu's face immediately darkened. I don't want to see her. If you want to see her, you can see her. On his delicate face, the word disdain was almost engraved on his forehead. Pang Xiao smiled helplessly. She is Yen Er's mother after all. Not for anything else, but for Yen Er. I want to see her and see what is going on. Speaking of his son, Mu Jinghu's face wavered. But Qiu Feishan had schemed against him, used him, deceived him. He had given his heart to Qiu Feishan, but Qiu Feishan had given him false feelings in return. Pang Xiao understood Mu Jinghu's thoughts very well. His big hand patted his shoulder. Let's see what she has to say. No matter what, she is still your son's mother. Mu Jinghu pursed his lips, feeling extremely depressed as he followed Pang Xiao out of the tent. Pang Xiao's team was growing stronger by the day, and with the delivery of provisions, the security around the camp was even tighter. Looking at it, the camp was extremely spectacular. The two dismissed the rest of the people and went straight out of the camp. From afar, they saw a row of carriages parked to the side. The curtain of the blue horse carriage in front was lifted, and Bing was looking out. When her eyes met Mu Jinghu's, she immediately pushed Qiu Feishan aside. Qiu Feishan was still dressed in men's clothes. A gray coat with raccoon fur was draped over the white collar of the arrow sleeves. Her fair and handsome face had a bit of tiredness, and she immediately looked over. When she saw Mu Jinghu, her eyes lit up, and she quickly supported Bing's hand to get off the carriage. Mu Jinghu's hands were clenched in a fist behind his back, and he stiffly looked away. Qiu Feishan's eyes darkened, and then she perked up. Has Wang Yi been well? Thank you for your concern, Boss Qiu. This king is very good. Pang Xiao's tone was kind. Qiu Feishan looked at Mu Jinghu affectionately and asked with a smile, How about you? How have you been recently? You don't have to worry. Mu Jinghu said stiffly and then became impatient. If you have something to say, just say it. You don't have to be so pretentious. I'm a stupid person, and I'll never be as smart as you. If you have any schemes, you don't have to do it. I have nothing to do with you anymore. Hearing this, Qiu Feishan's eyes turned red. She took a deep breath and smiled. Don't say that. Brother Yin can call me father now, but you're not here. Mu Jinghu pursed his lips. Even if I'm not around, he's still my son. He is him, and you are you. I can tell the difference. So you must be like this with me. Isn't that what you want me to do? Qiu Feishan raised her head and took a deep breath. She rationally changed the topic. Wang Ye's army provisions have been temporarily solved, but to fight against the Titan, we lack the imperial court's provisions. Wang Yi knows the financial resources of the four links, and I intend to do my best. She turned back and pointed to the carriages behind. Those are the provisions I brought. Even if Wang Yi refused to cooperate with me, I still brought the provisions to you. Pang Xiao didn't have the patience to talk to any woman other than Qin Yining, especially someone like Qiu Feishan, who was full of schemes. Moreover, her tone seemed to be reminding Pang Xiao that last time Pang Xiao refused to send troops to fight against the Titan and Lu Heng's alliance. Now, he still had to go to the Emperor's aid, and even had to prepare his own provisions. Such a tone of kindness was really unpleasant. Moreover, when had Pang Xiao suffered such a loss? Boss Qiu is considerate. Pang Xiao naturally would not embarrass Qiu Feishan in front of Mu Jinghu. He only said tactfully, "This king is not talented, but he has enough provisions. If Boss Qiu wants to do something for Dezhou, why don't you open a porridge stall with these provisions to help the people get through the difficulties? It can be considered as doing a good deed and accumulating merit." Qiu Feishan was speechless. She did not expect that Pang Xiao would still refuse to accept the help of the four links at this time. Wang Yi, do you know what you will face when you return to the capital? There's no need for me to tell you how many old officials of Northern Ji are secretly loyal to Lu Heng. And there's also no need for me to tell you about His Majesty's fear of you. Let's just say that with so many soldiers and horses, we can still support them for the time being because we are in a hurry. However, when we are on the battlefield, Your Highness will no longer be able to prepare the provisions. If there's a problem with the provisions, do you think Your Highness can rely on His Majesty to feed so many people? Qiu Feishan said what Pang Xiao had been thinking about these days. Although he had not found a solution, Pang Xiao was still very stubborn. Boss Qiu need not worry about this. Since this king can bring so many people to the Emperor's aid, he naturally has a way to provide for these people. This king appreciates Boss Qiu's good intentions. Qiu Feishan was rejected like this in front of Mu Jinghu. She was really unhappy, especially when she met Mu Jinghu's disdainful eyes. She felt ashamed as if she had been stripped naked. What did she do wrong to make Mu Jinghu treat her like this? Qiu Feishan's eyes were hot. She immediately lowered her eyes and blinked. She calmed down and smiled as usual. Wang Ye's words are reasonable. It's just that the provisions are in front of us, and once Wang Yi agrees, the four links will continue to support the South Pacifying Army in the future. Wang Yi will no longer have to worry about food. Is Wang Yi really going to refuse such a good thing? Pang Xiao smiled, but did not say anything. Qiu Feishan almost could not keep her smile. Pang Xiao cupped his hands and said, "This king still has things to do, so he'll go back first." Boss Qiu, please help yourself. Mu Jinghu saw Pang Xiao leave and also turned to leave. The cold wind of early spring made Qiu Feishan shiver. Looking at Mu Jinghu's resolute back, her heart felt like it was thrown into the snow and trampled on. Bai Ying gritted her teeth and held Qiu Feishan's arm. "Miss, young master is too much. You brought the provisions from thousands of miles away. Isn't it because of him? But he treated you like this." Qiu Feishan shook her head and pursed her lips. "I deceived and schemed first. I didn't expect him to have such a big reaction after knowing. You worked so hard to pretend to be sick and took so much medicine. Wasn't it all for young master's safety? If you didn't want to transfer him away from the center of the struggle and away from trouble, would you have to do this?" Bai Ying's face was red with anger. This servant has never seen such a stubborn person. Qiu Feishan turned back and walked to the side of the carriage. Looking at the group of carriages she brought, she stood there for a long time before regretfully and dejectedly saying, "He bears such a grudge against me now. It can be seen how much hope he had for me in the beginning. People will only have such a great resentment when they give their heart, but don't get anything in return. He is a person who clearly distinguishes between love and hate and values friendship. In the end, I misjudged him from the beginning." What Qiu Feishan didn't say was that at that time, she had calculated everything, including Mu Jinghu. At that time, Her feelings for Mu Jinghu were not as good as they were now. She was snatched away by Mu Jinghu and was forced to marry Mu Jinghu by Tian Jizi. In order to achieve her goal, she had no choice but to agree. But even if they were husband and wife, there was still a knot in her heart. Her feelings for Mu Jinghu only grew stronger after the matter was exposed, and he was determined to break off the relationship with her. Only then did she understand that perhaps she had feelings for Mu Jinghu long ago, but she just didn't realize it. However, she was not born to be an ordinary girl. She had the mission of a hidden family on her shoulders. Now that the Chiu family was out in the open, she had more things to do. Those were the rules passed down from generation to generation. She could not go against them, nor could she put matters of love above her mission. How can I have the best of both worlds? Chiu Fei Shan's white hands held onto the carriage, her brows tightly knitted together. Mu Jinghu and Pang Xiao had already returned to the camp. Pang Xiao could not help but worry when he saw Mu Jinghu's silent appearance. Blockhead, you don't have to be like this. She's your wife after all. Think more about Yanji. He is still young, you still have time to think. But he is a little older and more sensible. Are you still not willing to go home? Don't worry, I have my own plans. Mu Jinghu said confidently. Pang Xiao immediately understood. He shook his head and said, You are thinking too simply. If a child wants to grow up happily, he still needs to grow up in a warm environment with both parents. You have been with your master since you were young and have never lived a normal child's life. Do you want Yanji to be like that too? If he asks you for his mother, what will you do? Mu Jinghu was speechless for a moment. He did not know what to say. Pang Xiao patted his shoulder. This world is not black and white. Blockhead, Boss Chiu has her own motives. Although she deceived you, she is still your wife. If you're not willing to forgive her, your family will be ruined. As a brother, I really don't want to see your life become like that. And I am part of the reason. Mu Jinghu shook his head. Don't say that. I hate her for using me and deceiving me. What does it have to do with you? Looking at Pang Xiao's concerned eyes, Mu Jinghu looked down and was silent for a moment. He said, Don't worry, I will think about it. Pang Xiao could not force Mu Jinghu too much. He patted him on the shoulder again before walking away. Qin Yining heard about today's matter and laughed. Don't worry, Chiu Feishan is resourceful. If she wants Yanji Mu to change his mind, she has many ways. Yanji Mu is a kind person. They will reconcile sooner or later. You mean Boss Chiu might use a scheme? It's hard to say, but she has enough means. Moreover, she will not harm Yanji Mu. Even if there is a scheme, it is for their family of 3. You and I should not interfere. Qin Yining picked up a sour plum and put it in his mouth. A small round bump appeared on his cheek. It is better to tear down 10 temples than to destroy a marriage. Yanji Mu really likes Chiu Feishan. If they can reconcile, it will be good for Yanji. Don't think too much. Pang Xiao listened and laughed. He pointed his finger at Chiu Feishan's cheek. Do you think I am such a petty person? But Boss Chiu brought food at this time. It is a huge temptation. Chapter 1128. Pang Xiao smiled and nodded, his big hand caressing her cheek. I've always known that you're an open-minded person. You won't fuss over small matters. I was worried that you'd hate Boss Chiu and don't want to interact with her anymore. It's fine if I don't interact with her, but I like Yanji very much, and Mu Gongzi has helped us a lot. Our relationship is so complicated. How can we completely cut off our relationship? As for being open-minded, I can't say that. I'm very petty, but I know what's most important right now. Pang Xiao couldn't help but laugh. I don't see how you're petty. It must be very difficult for Mu to be caught in the middle, and I don't want him to be in such a dilemma. The next time I see Boss Chiu, I'll be more polite. The next time she comes, she might avoid Mu Gongzi. Qin Yining thought about Chiu Feishan's temperament and couldn't help but sigh again. She's a proud person, and Mu Gongzi has humiliated her twice in front of you. How can she bear it? I don't know how sad she'll be when she goes back. And when she comes to find you again, she'll have to wait until her heart is completely calm and she's past that hurdle. Pang Xiao raised his eyebrows, believing Qin Yining's words without a doubt. Mu Jinghu was a kind person, and he certainly hoped that his friend could be happy. It seemed that he had to think more for Mu Jinghu in the future and leave some face for Qiu Feishan when he sees her again. Even Sister Yi, a woman, could be so open-minded. How could he, a man, hold on to the past and not let go, and make things difficult for his brother? In the next few days, even if Pang Xiao was in a hurry, he still looked for opportunities to persuade Mu Jinghu. At first, Mu Jinghu was very resistant, but in the end, perhaps he was persuaded, and he often just kept silent. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining went to the capital, and along the way, they took the same road as when they came to the disaster relief. Needless to say, they were welcomed and loved by the people along the way, and many people joined the South Pacifying Army. Originally, there were 100,000 South Pacifying Army when they set off from the old capital, but when they arrived at the capital, the number of soldiers following Pang Xiao had increased to 280,000. This was a huge number. When Li Qitian learned that Pang Xiao had actually brought 280,000 men with him, he was so shocked that he jumped out of his dragon chair in the imperial study. He pointed at the spy who had answered him and asked in a sharp voice, "What? You're saying that Pang Zhishi brought 280,000 soldiers back? Where do you get the money to feed so many people?" On the way back, the south on the way back to the capital, when he returned on the way back to the capital, and the people on the way back. Once there, estes rich to this the VE have been to test people on his TT, to the VE thems that s for a time, TT. Now that Jiziu's troops had been incorporated into the armies of the various princes, there were no more than 100,000 soldiers in total. Pang Xiao alone had brought back 100,000 elites and 180,000 new soldiers. Once Pang Xiao had the intention to rebel, Jiziu and Gao Wenliang would have to resist the Titan. Who else would be able to stop Pang Xiao? Wouldn't he, the emperor, be stretching his neck and waiting for Pang Xiao to chop it off? He could already see the scene of Pang Xiao's army breaking into the capital and directly forcing him to abdicate. Li Qitian's back was soaked with sweat, and he didn't say anything for a long time. The spies knelt on one knee and lowered their heads, quietly waiting for Li Qitian's orders. After a long time, Li Qitian ordered Xiong Jinshui with a hoarse voice, "Go, summon all the ministers. Won't attend court." "Yes, your majesty." Xiong Jinshui heard the order and rushed out. After hearing the conversation between the emperor and the spies clearly, Xiong Jinshui's heart turned cold. If the Prince Zhongshan attacked, they, who had served the emperor closely, would probably lose their lives. He originally thought that serving the emperor was a good thing, but now he felt that he had made a bad move. For the past few days, the Titan had been besieging the capital. Jiziu's army stubbornly resisted. The people of the capital were tightly protected, but they could often hear the sounds of fighting and roaring on the battlefield. The medical centers in the capital and the nearby temples were all helping to treat the sick and the injured. The people often saw the miserable state of the sick and injured. This was the first time they were so close to war, and the first time they felt the shadow of death so clearly. Everyone was worried. Some people felt that the capital was no longer safe and planned to move their families. There were also people who felt that the capital was the heart of Dezhou. If it was lost, it would be useless no matter where they fled. Just as everyone was in a state of panic, the emperor, who had already held a small court meeting, urgently arranged a large court meeting. Some of the officials were still working, and some had already returned home. As soon as they heard the news, they immediately rushed back. The people were used to seeing the officials calm, but this was the first time they were so anxious. Many people secretly discussed, did something big happen in the imperial court? Could it be that the Tatars were about to attack? Li Qitian did not have time to think about other things. When the officials gathered, he immediately said, "Pang Zhishi's 280,000 troops are expected to arrive tomorrow. My beloved officials, what do you think? You can speak freely. I will definitely not blame you. Your Majesty, this old official thinks that Prince Zhongshan is wholeheartedly devoted to the country. This time, he brought troops to rescue the emperor. If Wang Yi and Marquis Ding Bei join forces, the Titan will definitely be defeated. This is truly a joyous matter." "That's right. Your Majesty, Marquis Ding Bei has already suppressed the Titan. With Prince Zhongshuan, our de Zhou will definitely win. Some people have always supported Pang Xiao to take over the position of the commander of the Tiger Army. Your Majesty has always been against it, but the war has reached the capital. Once the army is defeated, they will all become slaves of a subjugated country. At this time, the first thing to consider was whether they could win the war. As for other things, they did not consider them at the moment. Li Qiqian did not say anything, but his slightly furrowed brows and his constantly changing sitting posture in annoyance showed that Pang Xiao did not agree. Thus, someone stood out to persuade him. Your Majesty, please do not listen to the shallow words of these people. Your Majesty ordered all the troops in the world to rescue the Emperor. Prince Zhongshuan has not completed the disaster relief mission. He is not the commander of the Southern Pacifying Army, but he brought troops here this time. He really has ulterior motives. Once you lead the wolf into the house, the consequences will be unimaginable. These words entered Li Qiqian's heart, but he did not immediately express his position. At this time, a sturdy general stood out. His eyes were as wide as copper bells, and his elbow-sized fists were clenched tightly. It was as if he wished he could rush up and punch that person just now. Damn you for leading the wolf into the house. When Wang Yi led the troops to war, you were still chewing your nails under your mother's skirt. You are a coward who only knows how to flatter. If you have the ability, then go kill the Tatars with a knife. At this time, you are slandering Prince Zhongshuan. What are your intentions? You, boorish and boorish man. How can you behave atrociously in front of your Majesty? Bah, don't try to sow discord between your Majesty and me. Right now, we are talking about Prince Zhongshuan. Why are you talking so much? The Southern Pacifying Army only has 100,000 soldiers, but Prince Zhongshuan brought back 280,000 soldiers. Isn't it obvious at a glance what his intentions are? If he really doesn't have any ulterior motives, then why is he in such a hurry to recruit soldiers? That is because the common people are grateful to Wang Yi for saving their lives. Wang Yi saved many people along the way. The common people want to repay him, so they voluntarily followed Wang Yi to fight the Tatars. That is Wang Ye's rallying power, and also the common people's benevolence and righteousness. Compared to you, a beetle who only knows how to point fingers, even the common people carrying hoes are 100 times better than you. Seeing that the situation below was the same as before, with those who supported Pang Xiao and those who opposed Pang Xiao quarreling again. There was no help at all. Li Qiqian rubbed the space between his eyebrows in annoyance. Right now, he was extremely regretful. If he didn't arrange for Pang Xiao to go to the disaster relief, how could he have the opportunity to win over the people's hearts? Now, not only were his arrangements disrupted, but Pang Xiao also seemed to have won the people's hearts. On the contrary, he became the bad guy. Pang Xiao was simply born to be at odds with him. Enough. Li Qiqian stood up and looked down at the two people who had stopped quarreling in front of the throne room. He snorted coldly, turned around, and left in a huff. The ministers looked at each other in dismay. They had never seen Your Majesty leave in the middle of a court session. Could it be that the emperor urgently summoned them to a court session just because of Prince Zhongshuan? Even when the Titan's display was so urgent, Your Majesty was not so anxious. Some of the smarter ones had already seen Li Qiqian's taboo from his reaction. It seemed that compared to foreign enemies, Your Majesty was more wary of Prince Zhongshuan. Qin Yining was standing to the side while holding Ji Yun's hand, watching Jing Zhe and the others neatly set up the tent. Recently, she had been vomiting so much that she almost vomited when she smelled rice soup. In addition, they had to hurry on with the journey. After a few rounds of tossing and turning, Qin Yining's face was full of fatigue. The camp of the 280,000 soldiers of the South Pacifying Army stretched for miles. It was believed that Li Qiqian could see this group of people clearly from the top of the city gate. At this point, the Titan had not had time to attack yet. Everything was still in time. Qin Yining breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, fatigue quickly swept over him. He almost dozed off while holding Ji Yun's hand. Pang Xiao brought people to inspect the camp closely. By the time he returned, Qin Yining had already laid down and fallen asleep. Bing Tang sat quietly to the side. When he saw Pang Xiao lift the curtain and bow, he quickly stood up and bowed. Pang Xiao waved his hand. He first looked at Qin Yining's sleeping appearance, then gestured to Bing Tang to go outside to talk. Bing Tang nodded and followed Pang Xiao to a place not far from a tent. Wang Yi, what orders do you have? Is Wang Fei all right? Wang Fei looks weak, but her body has a good foundation. In addition to the previous recuperation, the loss from giving birth to the two young masters has already been recovered. It's just that the journey this time is tiring. For the time being, she should be fine after recuperating. Pang Xiao quietly breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. These days, Pang Xiao had been so busy with the new recruits that the South Pacifying Army had brought back that his feet did not touch the ground. Fortunately, Qin Yining did not need him to worry about anything. Just as he was thinking this, Huzi quickly walked in from outside. Wang Yi, the news of your return to the capital has spread. The emperor has urgently called for a large court meeting. I don't know what was discussed in the court meeting, but we have not received any orders here. This was expected. Li Qiqian's way of doing things was like this. He would definitely think carefully before opening the first net for others to jump in. Chapter 1129. Pang Xiao chuckled. Of course we have to wait. If this king acts rashly, I'm afraid some people will be scared to death. We don't know what he will do. Moreover, since we are going to the capital to rescue the king, we naturally have to listen to your majesty's orders. There are so many pairs of eyes watching us. Naturally, we have to be more cautious than before. Huzi puffed up his cheeks and said gloomily, the Tatars are right in front of us, but we can't rush up and cut them. It's simply too depressing. I haven't fought a battle to my heart's content in a long time. Pang Xiao laughed loudly and patted Huzi's shoulder. What's the hurry? The Tatars are right in front of us. Are you afraid that there won't be a battle to fight? Not to mention Huzi, even he, who had lived a peaceful life for a long time, would be itchy to fight. The Taytan had killed their way from the northern border to the capital. How many big cities had they occupied in Dezhou? How many people had they slaughtered? Owing such a debt of blood, as long as it was a person with courage in Dezhou, they would not be able to tolerate it. However, Li Qiqian didn't have a decree at the moment, and they were under the eyes of the world. He had brought 280,000 soldiers to rescue the king, so he would be watched by people with ulterior motives. If he made even half a step wrong, he would definitely be caught red-handed. When that time came, things would be pushed to an uncontrollable point. Therefore, even if he wanted to directly lead his soldiers to charge through the city gate and go through the entire capital to the north to help Jiziyu, he couldn't act blindly without thinking. The South Pacifying Army, led by Pang Xiao, was stationed in the south. The mountains were high and the emperor was far away. The former undisciplined soldiers who only knew how to eat had completely changed under Pang Xiao's leadership. Now the South Pacifying Army was strictly disciplined. Pang Xiao ordered them not to act without permission and to camp outside the city gate and wait for your majesty's orders. No one objected. Fortunately, it's already spring and flowers are in bloom. Even if we live in tents, we won't freeze to death. Every day, Xie Yu and Su Weiji led their strategists to Pang Xiao's place to discuss countermeasures. When they talked about Li Qiqian's arrangement, everybody was surprised and helpless. Your Majesty's fear of Wang Yi has reached the point of disregarding the safety of the capital. This is truly disappointing. You and I have never experienced the tense situation in the capital, yet we are already like this. Every day, the people of the capital see the wounded soldiers being carried down and hear the shouts of killing outside the city. I'm afraid that they are already panicking. The strategist looked at Pang Xiao and the others, and they all had the same thought. Xie Yu pursed her lips and thought for a moment before she said, Wang Yi, this is actually the best time. The attention of the emperor and the imperial court is focused on the Taytan, and the money and provisions in their hands are limited. If we attack with all our strength, we will definitely be able to take the capital. Even though he didn't finish his sentence, everyone understood what he meant. Right now, Li Qiqian was focused on the Taytan. If he wanted to seize the throne, this was the best time. If Pang Xiao made a move now, they would definitely succeed in one fell swoop. Pang Xiao only smiled when he heard this. I am a citizen of Dezhou. No matter what, I cannot let the people of Dezhou be ruled by an outsider. That will definitely make the people slaves. Even if we can take the capital now, what about in the future? Will there be people who hate me because of this? Will there be people who are not willing to follow me and continue to resist the Titan? Now is not the time to think about these things. Working together to drive the Titan out of Dezhou's land is the most important thing. As for other things, we will think about them after everything is peaceful and the people are safe. I cannot build my great cause on the sacrifice of the people. The strategists who had supported Xiaoyu's words just now all nodded when they heard this. Wang Yi was a benevolent and righteous person. He always put the people first, and this was already very commendable. If they could follow such a wise leader, they would be blessed in the future. Xiaoyu and Su Weiji looked at each other and smiled. Others might not know, but Su Weiji understood Xiaoyu too well. The reason why he said this in front of the strategists was to give Wang Yi a chance to explain his situation. He wanted them to understand Wang Yi's painstaking efforts and the reason why Wang Yi did not choose to directly attack the capital. The reason why Wang Yi made this choice was probably because he considered the people's point of view. However, for bystanders like them, Wang Yi's choice was the one that would bring him the most benefits. As strategists, they naturally had to do their best to think of Wang Yi. When Wang Yi was in a daze, they would make appropriate suggestions. However, in recent days, Xiaoyu and Su Weiji gradually realized that all of Pang Xiao's choices seemed risky on the surface, but in the end, they all seemed to be beneficial to him. Sometimes, even Xiaoyu and Su Weiji felt that Wang Yi was taking risks, but in the end, the dangers were all averted. Could this be fate? Was Tian Jizi's early predictions correct? While everyone was discussing, Li Qitian was also discussing with a few of his trusted aides in the imperial palace. The South Pacifying Army is still stationed outside the city. If we directly let such a large group of soldiers through the city gates like the reinforcements, if Prince Zhongshuan has any thoughts of rebellion, then wouldn't we have no hope at all? Li Qitian was also thinking this, which was why he was particularly conflicted. We have also thought about it. Prince Zhongshuan has fought for Dezhou for many years. In the end, he has made great contributions. We also don't want to suspect him. Those who could be called into the imperial study alone to discuss countermeasures were all Li Qitian's trusted aides. The reason why these people were able to become Li Qitian's trusted aides was because they were able to judge the situation. They were good at judging the situation and understood Li Qitian's thoughts. They were always able to say things that could solve the problem and please Li Qitian. Therefore, at this time, they all had a worried expression. They righteously and sternly said in unison, "Your Majesty, please reconsider." They looked at each other and then said, "Your Majesty, you are an open-minded person. Naturally, you won't think too much. However, we can't help but consider the possibility of a mishap. Your Majesty, you trust Prince Zhongshuan, but that doesn't mean that Prince Zhongshuan will definitely be loyal to you. What if something were to happen? At that time, the situation will be out of control. Your Majesty, please consider carefully." That's right. Your Majesty should think about the great cause first. We also know that Your Majesty's heart is indeed uncomfortable and tormented by not trusting Prince Zhongshuan. However, for the sake of the entire Dezhou dynasty, Your Majesty, please reconsider. Li Qitian's expression was normal. He looked down at the back of his hand as he listened. After a long time, Li Qitian slowly said, "We understand your meaning. Let's think about it." Pang Xiao thought that with Li Qitian's temperament, he would resolve the matter within 2 days. He didn't expect that he would lead 280,000 people and wait in front of the city gate for 3 days. 3 days wasn't a long time, but it wasn't short either. However, with a camp of 280,000 people, sooner or later, the food they brought wouldn't be able to support them. Your Majesty's decree still hasn't been issued. It seems that this king will have to urge him. Pang Xiao frowned as he pondered. I don't know what Your Majesty is thinking. When the situation is critical, you have reinforcements, but you don't slow down. You don't give us a decree, and you don't give us any pay or provisions. You just let us wait here. What is the meaning of this? Huzi was already filled with anger. However, without your majesty's decree, Wang Yi ordered them to stay where they were and not enter the city. They were also not to contact Jiziyu in private. Pang Xiao didn't want to give others a reason to suspect Jiziyu. He didn't want others to see them and think that they were secretly communicating with each other to plot against your majesty. However, no one understood Jiziyu's current predicament better than anyone else. The various armies that came to rescue your majesty all had their own commanders and their own thoughts. Not everyone who came to rescue the king was wholeheartedly loyal to your majesty. Most of them had their own motives. It wouldn't be a big deal if they were just complicated people. More importantly, they didn't have enough food and provisions. When soldiers went to war, they didn't even have enough food to eat. The resentment in the soldiers' hearts would only accumulate and deepen. Faced with the pressure of the Taytan army on the battlefield, if they retreated, the people in the capital would be the ones to fall. Under such pressure, how would Jiziyu deal with it? He needed reinforcements and provisions, but your majesty didn't agree to any of them. These days, it wasn't just the people from the South Pacifying Army who were suspicious. Even the Tiger Army guarding the North Gate felt the same. The wounded soldiers on the battlefield had to be carried back to the city to recuperate. Their situation would more or less affect the mood of the people in the city. However, after being suppressed for a long time, your majesty didn't want to do anything. Even the people were complaining now. Pang Xiao smiled placatingly. Your majesty wants to make a decision. In his eyes, this is related to his fate. It will be very difficult for him to make a decision. We don't need to be too anxious. The decree will be given in these 2 days. If this dragged on, the people in the capital would probably make a ruckus before Pang Xiao could bring people into the city. Just as Pang Xiao said, the emperor's decree was sent to the South Pacifying Army camp the next day. Xiong Jin Shui had a bitter expression on his face. His iron-gray sunflower gown was suddenly blown up by a biting cold spring breeze. He was already covered in cold sweat, and at this moment he suddenly shivered. Not long after, Pang Xiao was seen leading a few high-ranking military officers. They rode their horses and arrived from the military camp that stretched as far as the eye could see. When they got close, Pang Xiao flipped over and jumped, smiling. Eunuch Xiong, does your majesty have any orders? Yes. Commander Feng asked loudly with a rough voice. Is your majesty going to order us to fight the Tatars? Xiong Jin Shui swallowed hard and opened the imperial decree. Prince Zhongshuan received the decree. Yes, your majesty. Pang Xiao led everyone to kneel down. By the will of heaven, the emperor decrees. Prince Zhongshuan is ordered to lead the South Pacifying Army to take a detour around the capital and go through Jiaxiao Valley. They will outflank the Taytan from the rear and attack the Taytan from the front and back with the Tiger Army. The emperor decrees. Xiong Jin Shui was an eunuch. His slightly sharp voice spread in the wind. Everyone who heard it was stunned. Before Pang Xiao could speak, Commander Feng jumped 3 feet high. What? The capital is right in front of us. Once the city gate is opened, we can directly rush over and fight the Tatars to the death. Why do we have to take a detour? That's right. We rushed back from afar to solve the siege of the capital. Now we are here. After giving us the cold shoulder for so many days, now the city gate doesn't allow us to enter and wants us to take a detour. What outflank from the rear? What if the Tatars have already entered the capital by the time we take a detour from Jiaxiao Valley? Huzi also roared angrily. Chapter 1130. Xiong Jin Shui couldn't help but look nervously at Pang Xiao. Here, Prince Zhongshuan was the one who had the final say. As long as he said a word, he could decide his life or death. Pang Xiao's expression was calm. There wasn't a trace of emotion on his face. This kind of situation made Xiong Jin Shui most afraid. If Pang Xiao was willing to vent his anger, it would at least mean that he wasn't so angry that he couldn't speak. But what could he do? Your Majesty had given an edict. Who would question it? Did they not want their heads anymore? All right, everyone calm down. Pang Xiao was silent for a long time before finally speaking. The noisy scene finally quieted down. Everyone looked at Pang Xiao, waiting for his orders. Xiong Jin Shui swallowed with difficulty. At this time, he deeply felt that as long as Pang Xiao gave the order, his soldiers would immediately rebel regardless of the consequences. And he would also become a ghost under the knife. Your Majesty has given an edict. This subject will only accept it. Your Majesty must have his own reasons for making a decision. How can this subject question it? Everyone, don't say anything more. Pang Xiao reprimanded in a low voice. Then he accepted the edict with both hands and kowtowed in thanks. Xiong Jin Shui let out a long sigh of relief. He felt a great sense of relief, as if he had just survived a disaster. He hurriedly bowed and walked out, as if there was a hungry wolf chasing after him. Xie Yu and Su Weiji stood on either side of Pang Xiao. Seeing Xiong Jin Shui leave, they couldn't help but sigh with worry. When eunuch Xiong returns, he might exaggerate what happened here. At that time, I don't know how the emperor will misunderstand and how he will treat Wang Yi. Let him be. Pang Xiao held the imperial edict in his hand. His fingertips were white from gripping it so hard. In any case, we have already come this far. Even if I don't do anything, I will still be suspected of having bad intentions. Wang Yi, for the Son of Heaven to make such a decision, he really doesn't care about the comfort of Dezhou. Right now, the most important thing is that the Taitan are about to break into the capital. We should lead the army into the city gate and go straight through the capital to the north of the city to rendezvous with Marquis Dingbei. The most important thing is to discuss how to repel the Tatars, Su Weiji said with a frown. This king also knows that this is what he should do, but perhaps the emperor is waiting for me to disobey the emperor again. Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. If he disobeyed the imperial edict this time, it would be different from before. In the past, he had resisted the imperial edict to save his wife and had not harmed anyone else's interests. He had simply refused to comply with the imperial edict and return to the capital. But now, if he defied the imperial edict and directly led the army into the capital, it would look like he was trying to force the emperor to abdicate and usurp the throne. The history books would condemn him in speech and in writing. It would be inevitable that he and all of his followers would have a stain on their names. Pang Xiao absolutely could not allow himself to have such a stain on his name. Fortunately, Jiziyu was a godlike strategist. Pang Xiao was quite clear about his ability. Right now, he could still hold on for a while, enough for him to quickly march around Jiaxiao Valley. While Pang Xiao was discussing with the strategists, the news of Your Majesty's imperial edict had gradually spread among the army. When they heard that Your Majesty had actually made them wait for so many days, but in the end, he gave the order to take a detour, everyone was very puzzled. Some of the more straightforward ones had already begun to sigh with emotion. Isn't it because he's afraid of our Wang Yi? Wang Yi brought us into the capital to kill the Tatars, but Your Majesty is so narrow-minded, guarding against us as if we were thieves. It's really chilling. Enough, this is not something we can say. Some of the more cautious ones came out to stop them and change the topic. What did Wang Yi say? Are we really going to take a detour to Jiaxiao Valley? If the ruler wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. What can Wang Yi do? Everyone was silent for a moment. Some people couldn't help but think that if Wang Yi was willing to lead them into the capital, it would be great. This kind of conversation was happening in every corner of the Southern Ping Army's camp. Qin Yining reclined on the wooden couch in the tent, hugging the quilt as she stared at the door in a daze. Li Qiqian had given such an imperial edict. He really did not trust Pang Xiao at all. If Pang Xiao really wanted to take a detour to Jiaxiao Valley, he probably wouldn't bring her along. Rationally, Qin Yining knew that as a woman, she wouldn't be of any help to Pang Xiao if she went to the front line. She might even become Pang Xiao's burden and weakness. However, emotionally, she was already used to being with Pang Xiao. Now that they were going to be separated again, she really didn't want to. When Pang Xiao came back, he saw Ji Yun and Bing Tang quietly doing needlework at the door. Qin Yining was wrapped in a quilt and lying on her side. He thought that Qin Yining was asleep and immediately made a shushing gesture. He excused Bing Tang and Ji Yun from bowing and tiptoed to the side of the wooden bed. Qin Yining heard the footsteps and immediately looked over. Did I wake you up? Pang Xiao smiled and sat down. Qin Yining shook her head. No, I wasn't asleep. I was just thinking about something. She flipped over and sat up. She casually combed her messy long hair. When do you plan to leave for Jiaxiao Valley? The imperial edict has already been issued. I can only leave tomorrow morning to report. Otherwise, people will misunderstand that I intend to rebel against the imperial edict. Qin Yining nodded and said worriedly, time is tight. Right now, we're bringing so many people. Food is also a problem. Can you handle it? Pang Xiao pinched her face with his large hand. Don't worry, I can handle it. The only thing I'm worried about is you. Sister E, I can't bring you to the front line. If it was in the past, I would have brought you with me wherever I went. Only when you are in front of me can I feel at ease. But this time, we will have to fight a bloody battle with the Tatars. I am afraid I won't be able to protect you. I know. Qin Yining smiled. I am not stupid. I am 4 months pregnant now. What can I do to help if I follow you to the battlefield? On the contrary, it will be inconvenient for me to recuperate. I'm also afraid that it will affect my child. Pang Xiao sighed in relief. Seeing that she was so open-minded and chose the most reasonable path without his persuasion, he really liked and admired her. But he really couldn't bear to part with Qin Yining. Sister E, where do you plan to go? Qin Yining thought for a moment and said, I want to go to Golden Port. Lord Chun, there is an upright person. We have lived there for a while, and he can get along well with the people there. Moreover, it is near the sea. If there is anything, we will be able to deal with it. In addition, it is also the hub to the south. We must pass through the place to transfer the provisions. If you want to bring the troops to outflank the Taytan, the provisions will have to follow. You just need to go and let me take care of the provisions. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining in surprise. You will take care of the provisions and military? You think I can't? Qin Yining raised her eyebrows and tilted her head to look at him. The way her watery eyes and long eyelashes fluttered really made people's hearts itch. Pang Xiao couldn't help but hug her and said with a smile, I naturally trust your ability. I am worried about your health. Originally, I wanted to let Mr. Xie stay and take care of the provisions and military for me. Since that is the case, why don't I leave this to you and let Mr. Xie stay to assist you? You can also discuss with each other. If you encounter a problem, you won't have to worry about it alone. Qin Yining said with a smile, that is naturally good. Mr. Xie is resourceful and meticulous. Thinking about it, I won't be too tired. I can find a place in Golden Port to wait for the birth. Yes. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining. After a long time, he sighed and held her hands to his lips, kissing them gently. This time, I'm afraid I can't be by your side when you give birth. I can't be by your side during the most difficult time, but I have to. Don't say that. Qin Yining pointed to the corner of his mouth and said with a smile, you are going to do something serious, not go sightseeing. Don't worry, I know how to take care of myself. The next time we meet, you'll have another son or daughter. Pang Xiao wanted to nod repeatedly. For a moment, the corner of his mouth rose, and he couldn't help but smile. Qin Yining was amused by his silly look and comforted himself in his heart. They were only separated for a short time. When the war was over, they would naturally be able to reunite. Pang Xiao was a godly commander, so there shouldn't be any major problems. Pang Xiao turned over and lay down. He whispered to Qin Yining and analyzed the current situation. They also discussed what might happen in the future. As for Bingtang and Jiyun, they had already gone to prepare Qin Yining's luggage. Pang Xiao brought 10 Jinghu Wei for Qin Yining. Qin Yining also had people from the Qingtian Alliance and the Silver Masked Spy by his side. His safety was guaranteed. The next morning, Qin Yining changed into a stone green cotton cloak. His long black hair was loosely tied into a bun. He stood beside the carriage with a smile and looked up at Pang Xiao. All right, you still have important things to do. The South Pacifying Army will also set off in a while. Don't settle down here. I will get in the carriage and set off now. Pang Xiao nodded and whispered, don't work too hard. If there's anything, just leave it to Mr. Xie. You have to put your own health first. Everything else is secondary. You don't have to worry about me here. This time, I am cooperating with Alon. I am confident. I know. I will also do my best to prepare your provisions. Pang Xiao smiled. I know your ability, but you don't have to be too nervous. Maybe His Majesty will send someone else to take care of the grain for the sake of his reputation. Qin Yining chuckled. Why don't I believe it? Seeing her like this, Pang Xiao couldn't help but laugh as well. Pang Xiao carried Qin Yining and carefully put him into the carriage. He helped her tidy her hair and smiled. It's getting late. You should set off quickly. Don't delay and stay at a hotel on the way. You should go back too. Qin Yining helped him tidy up his collar and smiled. Although winning the war is important, your life is more important. You must take care of yourself. Don't worry about it every time. Don't think that you can shoulder everything by yourself. Don't sacrifice yourself to save others. Promise me, don't make me worry. Pang Xiao held her hand and said, Don't worry, I promise. The two looked at each other and smiled. At this moment, they seemed to have engraved each other's appearance in their hearts. Xie and Jinghu Wei walked to the side of the carriage. Pang Xiao nodded at Xie. The meaning of entrusting her to him was obvious in his eyes. Xie had followed Pang Xiao for a long time and naturally understood. She cupped her hands and bowed with a serious expression. Wang Yi, don't worry. Pang Xiao nodded and looked at Qin Yin and go. Take good care of yourself. We can also send more messages. Chapter 1131. It wasn't just Pang Xiao and his men who were waiting for your Majesty's decree. The common people in the city were also waiting. As early as when Pang Xiao led his troops to set up camp outside the city, the common people in the capital seemed to have been injected with new blood. Even though they could see the injured being carried back to the city for treatment every day, and there were often corpses that needed to be buried in the outskirts of the city, everyone still felt that this battle was full of hope because Prince Zhongshuan had returned with his troops. What kind of person was Pang Xiao? Pang Xiao had made great contributions to pacifying Dian and quelling the rebellion of Southern Yan. In terms of fighting, there were probably not many people in Dezhou who could compare to him. With Duke Dinghua defending the city and Prince Zhongshuan leading so many troops to support them, why would they worry that the siege of the capital couldn't be lifted? However, just as everyone was looking forward to it, Prince Zhongshuan actually left with his troops. What's going on? Do you know what's going on with Prince Zhongshuan? Why did he leave? I don't know. Prince Zhongshuan has been leading his men to wait for your Majesty's decree for so many days. Did your Majesty order Wang Yi to leave this time? Impossible. Right now, the war is so tense. No matter who you want to leave, you can't let Prince Zhongshuan leave. You don't know. I heard that your Majesty was worried that Prince Zhongshuan would lead his men to rebel, so he didn't let him enter the city and ordered him to take a detour to outflank the Taytan. This is simply taking off his pants to fart. Outflank the Taytan? By the time we outflank the Taytan, all of our people will be dead. Shoo, you don't want to live anymore. This kind of conversation occurred in every corner of Dezhou's capital. The common people were furious that Li Qitian did not allow Prince Zhongshuan to lead troops into the city to resist the Taytan. Helpless, the Jingji guards would arrest the common people who spoke nonsense on the streets and alleys. Even so, the rumors and slanders didn't stop. Instead, they were like a wildfire. The Taytan was right in front of them, yet your Majesty did such a thing out of jealousy. How could they not be angry? Jiziyu had lost a lot of weight. His incomparably handsome face was stained with dust. His hair was casually tied up at the back of his head. Stubble had also grown on his chin. Although it didn't reduce his charm, it gave off a different kind of decadent feeling. When he heard Ma Cheng's report, his expression remained unchanged as he nodded. Ma Cheng was a bold and careful person. Although his face was flushed with anger, he didn't dare to say much. He only asked, "What do you think, Marquis?" Jiziyu glanced at him and said in a low voice, "It's not surprising." Ma Cheng stared blankly for a moment before sorrow welled up in his heart. As a general, even if he wasn't a famous general, he couldn't help but feel sad when he saw the two mountains in front of him fall to such a state. One was feared by your Majesty, and the other was used by your Majesty. As a general, no one would believe him if he told others about his sadness and powerlessness. Marquis North calming. At this moment, Gao Wenliang strode over and cupped his hands in a perfunctory manner. I plan to lead 10,000 tiger army out of the city to launch a surprise attack on the Tatans. I'm here to tell you, Marquis. Plan? Jiziyu raised his eyebrows, a cold light flashing in his peach blossom eyes. Gao Wenliang didn't notice. He raised his square chin and said arrogantly, "Yes, the Tatan have retreated. We should strike while the iron is hot. Since Marquis doesn't dare to do it, then I'll do it. I believe that with my ability and the well-trained tiger army, we can definitely defeat the Tatan." Jiziyu pursed his lips and said indifferently, "Prince Zhongshuan spent a lot of effort to train the tiger army. It's not for you to lead them to their deaths." "Huh?" Gao Wenliang sneered and said mockingly, "Is that so? Even so, the current commander-in-chief of the tiger army is still me, Gao Wenliang, personally appointed by your majesty." Jiziyu looked at Gao Wenliang silently. Ma Cheng had a short temper and couldn't help but sneer. "Who isn't an official appointed by your majesty? Are you the only one who's from Dezhou, and none of us are?" Gao Wenliang realized that he had said something wrong and glared at him. He subconsciously puffed out his chest and said loudly, "What are you saying? Aren't you nitpicking? What I meant was that my decision was made in consideration of Dezhou. Since your majesty is willing to appoint me as the commander-in-chief of the tiger army, it means that he thinks highly of my ability. Is that so?" Jiziyu said in a low voice, "The current situation isn't suitable for pursuit. Moreover, the tiger army can't tolerate any meaningless sacrifice. I don't accept your opinion." It was the first time Jiziyu had addressed him so deliberately. His words reminded Gao Wenliang that although he was the commander-in-chief of the tiger army, Jiziyu was your majesty's actual commander-in-chief against the Tatan. A while ago, when the various armies arrived, your majesty ordered everyone to listen to Jiziyu's command. Gao Wenliang gritted his teeth and saluted. "North placating Marquis, please consider." Before he could finish, Jiziyu waved his hand and interrupted him. "There's nothing to consider. Let's call a ceasefire for now." Gao Wenliang glared at Jiziyu and gritted his teeth. When he met Ma Cheng's mocking gaze, he immediately snorted and left in a huff. Seeing Gao Wenliang walk down the city gate tower as if he was flying, Ma Cheng said worriedly, "This person is good at currying favor. He might go back and complain to someone. If it reaches your majesty's ears, I'm afraid things will change." Jiziyu looked down at the city gate indifferently. Let him do as he pleases. Ma Cheng thought about it and couldn't help but laugh. Anyway, the imperial court has put North placating Marquis in an important position. Would your majesty hand over the entire task of resisting the Tatan to that idiot Gao Wenliang? Your majesty isn't stupid. The parade of 280,000 soldiers took a long time. The front had already set off, but the rear hadn't received any orders. Pang Xiao urged his horse to stand by the side of the road, holding a long saber in one hand and the reins in the other. He allowed the dark clouds to kick his horse uneasily as he watched the army pass by in an orderly manner. Huzi, Tang Xiao, and the other Jinghu Wei soldiers behind Pang Xiao all had dark expressions. The unhappiness in their hearts was about to turn into reality. But because Pang Xiao was present, everyone suppressed their feelings and did not show it. Huzi had followed Pang Xiao the longest and knew Pang Xiao's temper and personality. Just by looking at his back, Huzi knew that Wang Yi was not in a good mood right now. Wang Yi and Wang Fei were so loving, and Wang Fei was 4 months pregnant. They should have been able to enjoy the happiness of a family. But because of the Son of Heaven's decisions, they were forced to separate. When Wang Fei needed someone to accompany her the most, Wang Yi could not be by Wang Fei's side. Wang Yi must be very anxious. "Wang Yi," Huzi urged his horse forward and said in a low voice, "Right now, we are just outside the city. The army has not even completely moved out. As long as Wang Yi gives the order, this situation will end. I believe that with our 280,000 soldiers and Wang Ye's command, it will be easy to take Jing." Pang Xiao turned back to look at Huzi and said in a low voice, "Do not mention this matter again. Right now, I am doing this to prevent the people of the Zhou from being enslaved by other tribes. This is the most important matter. As to other matters, we will discuss them after we clear out the enemies. Yes. Huzi saw that Pang Xiao had made up his mind and knew that it was useless to try to persuade him. He nodded obediently and then smiled and said, Wang Yi, do not worry. Right now, you have hundreds of people responding to your call. No matter what decision you make, we will support it. This was clearly saying that he supported Pang Xiao in taking the throne. Pang Xiao's face was dark, and he did not speak. Huzi did not speak and retreated. Pang Xiao was not in the mood to think about taking the throne. He was worried about Qin Yining. Although he had arranged enough guards, and Qin Yining had people to protect and take care of him, Pang Xiao was still worried. Right now, he only wanted to end this war as soon as possible and return peace to the world. He also wanted his sister, Yi, to live a peaceful life and not have to wander around like a homeless person. Qin Yining left Jing and did not take a roundabout route. The group headed straight for Jinggang. Bing Tang said worriedly, Wang Fei, should we hide our tracks? This servant is worried that your majesty's people will follow us. Qin Yining smiled. It's not important. We cannot completely live in seclusion. Even if we avoid them now, when we reach Jinggang, we will still have to live under their eyes. The emperor's people will still be able to find us. What should we do? Bing Tang frowned worriedly. Wang Yi is not by your side. What if the emperor makes a move against you? Of course, we have to be on guard. Qin Yining tightened the cloak on his shoulders and smiled. When the time comes, we will naturally think of a way. Even if we hide here and there, it is useless. Bing Tang and Ji Yun both nodded. Qin Yining was right. The smartest response was not to simply hide, because if they hid, they would be found by the emperor's people. What they had to do was to stay in the open and think of an easy way out. Wang Fei has always been so calm and intelligent. She is resourceful. Bing Tang sighed. If Wang Fei was not quick-witted and decisive in many matters, I am afraid that we would have suffered a calamity sooner or later. Since I brought all of you out, I have to be responsible for all of your lives. I will do all that I can. But I do feel that ever since I got pregnant, my brain is not enough. Qin Yining self-deprecatingly said, Is there any way to nourish my brain? Ji Yun and Bing Tang stilled when they heard this, and then giggled. Wang Fei is joking again. Of course, there's a way. Once we settle down, we will eat it. The laughter in the carriage also infected the people accompanying and protecting the carriage. Originally, everyone had been somewhat depressed when they were forced to leave Jing City. But now, they felt that as long as they followed Wang Fei, they would have a path to walk. Unknowingly, Qin Yining's influence on them as a woman was no less than Pang Xiao's influence on them. Deep in the palace, Li Qitian heard the reports of countless eunuchs. He confirmed that the South pacifying army outside Jing City had completely left and was heading towards Jiaxiao Valley to follow the imperial edict to outflank the Taitan. He couldn't help but sigh in relief. Fortunately, Pang Xiao did not insist on entering the city. Otherwise, wouldn't they be laughed at in the end? At least Pang Xiao was tactful. Chapter 1132. Li Qitian nodded expressionlessly, but his hands gripped the hem of his robe under the table. This Pang Zhishi really wouldn't let him live peacefully in any way. When he didn't have a son, Pang Zhishi had a twin first. It wasn't easy for the heavens to open their eyes and let Pang Zhishi lose his son, but now his wife had another. Pang Zhishi didn't have any concubines, only this one woman. He had 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, but he still only had one eldest son. He wasn't much older than Pang Zhishi, so why couldn't he do it? Order people to secretly protect the Prince Zhongshuan's consort. Li Qitian ordered in a deep voice. The spies naturally understood Li Qitian's meaning. After following the emperor for so long, they had seen a lot of things in the dark. How could they not know the emperor's fear and jealousy of the Prince Zhongshuan? Although it was said to be protection, they all understood what this protection meant. It was fine as long as they didn't lose track of the person. As you wish. The spies cupped their hands and bowed, then quickly retreated. Li Qitian rubbed between his eyebrows tiredly. Looking at the booklets on the table, he only felt annoyed. He simply stood up and walked out. Let's go to Cunning Palace. Yes, your majesty will go to Cunning Palace. Xiong Jinshui shouted and quickly followed behind Li Qitian. It was almost lunchtime, and the empress was playing with the eldest son. However, come, mother. The empress had a loving smile on her face. She shook the rattle drum in her hand. The small red drum shook twice. 2 red coral beads fell on the surface of the drum with lotuses drawn on it. It caused the children in red to giggle and stumble forward. Li Qitian entered and saw this scene. When he learned that Pang Zhao's woman was pregnant, his jealousy reached its peak. Your Majesty. When the empress saw Li Qitian, she hurriedly curtsied. The wet nurse also hurried forward to support Brother Hao. The child's charmingly naive body also bowed to Li Qitian and called out in a childish voice, Daddy. Only then did Li Qitian reveal a slight smile. The empress hurriedly hugged her son. Hao Jier, you have to call Imperial Father. Come, say this son greets Imperial Father. The child blinked his big eyes and looked up at Li Qitian. He squatted down again obediently. Urching, please greet Father Hua. The child's voice was soft and obedient. Coupled with his unclear pronunciation, Li Qitian burst into laughter. She bent down and held Hao Gu'er's armpits to pick him up. Get up. Thank you, Your Majesty. The empress secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Your Majesty's appearance when he entered the door scared her so much that she almost wanted to ask the wet nurse to quickly send her son away so that he would not be frightened. Fortunately, she did not do so. Qin Yining's journey to Golden Harbor was very smooth. Because she had come here more than once, she was familiar with the road. This time, she was in a Golden Harbor on the same road as the previous disaster relief. Therefore, whenever Qin Yining showed her face, the people she met were all extremely respectful and grateful to her. At this time, it was already the time when spring was warm and the flowers were blooming. Except for the men who had followed Pang Xiao to join the army, the common people in various places had started to cultivate intensively. In addition, they were rebuilding their homes. So, the scenery they encountered along the way was filled with a thriving atmosphere. The more Qin Yining walked, the more relaxed she felt. Even a matter of handling the food was more skillful. With Xiaoyu present, she often only needed to give a general idea, and Xiaoyu would be able to arrange it properly. Qin Yining really did not need to work too hard. Wang Fei, Golden Harbor City, is up ahead. Bing Tang lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked out the window with a smile. Everywhere she saw was green. Along the way, everywhere is full of vitality. Wang Ye's disaster relief efforts were really not in vain. Qin Yining had a preserved sour plum in her mouth and a small bump on her cheek. Hearing this, her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. That's right. We met many familiar faces along the way. Back then, we were so hungry that we were just skin and bones. Now we are much better. If the heavens favor us and give us a stable year, everyone will recover in less than 3 years. That's right. All of this is thanks to Wang Yi. Jiyan also smiled. They arrived at the city gates smoothly and saw a small group of people standing not far away. The person in the lead was dressed in a dark green robe with narrow sleeves and a white jade buckle around his waist. His hair was neatly tied up at the top of his head. His handsome features carried some vicissitudes and tiredness, but did not diminish his elegance at all. It's Boss Chiu. Bing Tang frowned. She's waiting here. Could it be that she knows that our team is about to arrive? Ji Yun's expression became serious, and she looked inquiringly at Qin Yining. Wang Fei, do you want to see her? I keep feeling that she's up to no good. Qin Yining was a little hesitant, but he nodded and said, Our standpoints are different. It's human instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm. Although she's quite calculative, she didn't really hurt us. Moreover, whether she wants to avenge her grandfather or not is her own choice. It has nothing to do with us. She's Mu Gongzi's wife, so it's better not to make things too stiff. Then you must be careful. We're now out of Wang Ye's protection, and the four-way number is everywhere. I'm afraid that if she's up to no good, we won't be able to deal with it. Ji Yin couldn't help but stroke the soft sword wrapped around her waist, as if she was thinking about what angle she should choose to attack if Qiu Feishan wanted to harm Qin Yining. Qin Yining couldn't help but laugh at her serious appearance. No, she and Wang Yi have common interests now. She still hopes that Wang Yi will defeat Lu Heng so that the Qiu family can be completely stabilized. Even if she's scheming, it's a matter for the future. As he spoke, the carriage stopped in front of Qiu Feishan. Qin Yining lifted the curtain and met Qiu Feishan's eyes. He smiled slightly and said, "Boss Qiu, why are you waiting here?" Qiu Feishan saw that Qin Yining was amiable and didn't directly make her lose face like Pang Xiao, so she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. "Wang Fei." Qiu Feishan cupped her hands and said with a smile, "I heard that you came here, so I've been waiting here." "You heard?" Qin Yining raised an eyebrow and asked. Qiu Feishan smiled and said, "Wang Fei is a smart person. Naturally, you know where I heard it from." "Naturally, I still know the ability of the Qiu family." Qin Yining knew that Qiu Feishan was inadvertently showing the strength of the Qiu family to him, so that their cooperation would look more attractive. After all, the Qiu family also had a complicated relationship in the court. In the past, when the Lu family didn't make any mistakes, the reclusive families should act in a low-key manner according to the ancestral teachings. So the people trained by the Qiu family only appeared when the Lu family completely fell. But now, many officials in the court had inextricable ties with the Qiu family. She was indirectly telling him that now that Pang Xiao was fighting in the front line, there was a time when the Qiu family was needed. Qiu Feishan raised the corner of her lips. "It's refreshing to talk with a smart person like Wang Fei. There's no need to waste time explaining. Wang Fei suddenly came here, so you must have not bought a house or a field. I have prepared a house with 2 courtyards. The location is excellent. It's not remote, and it's not too noisy. It's most suitable for Wang Fei's elegant temperament. I wonder if Wang Fei is willing to go?" Qin Yining smiled and said, "To be honest, I have ordered people to prepare a house first, but I still thank Boss Qiu for her kindness." Qiu Feishan was a little disappointed. It seems that Wang Fei is the same as Wang Yi, still angry. "No, Boss Qiu misunderstood. It's just that I bought a house, so there's no need for Boss Qiu to spend money. As for Wang Yi, he's not angry. The person who's really angry is Mu Gongzi. After all, we're all outsiders. Everyone has their own standpoints. You didn't directly harm me and Wang Yi, so why should we be angry?" Although this was the truth, for Qiu Feishan, it was the most painful. She wanted to share a box with Pang Xiao, but whether Pang Xiao and Qin Yining were angry or not, she didn't care at all. She always cared about Mu Jinghu. If she knew that Mu Jinghu would have such a big reaction, she would have thought of a more careful way to not let him find out. Qiu Feishan sighed. "As a Wang Fei, I feel more and more uneasy." Qin Yining looked around, then smiled and said, "This is not the place to talk. If Boss Qiu doesn't mind, you can get on the carriage and come with me to see the new house." Qiu Feishan was surprised when she heard this. She didn't expect Qin Yining to take the initiative to invite her, so she hurried forward. Bing Tang and Ji Yun looked at each other, then looked at Qin Yining questioningly. After all, the space in the carriage was limited, and the master wanted to talk business. If they didn't leave, it would be unreasonable, but they didn't want to leave Qin Yining's safety to Qiu Feishan. Bing Tang got off the carriage. Ji Yun ignored Qin Yining's signal and refused to get off. She just tried to sit in front of the door, giving her seat to Qiu Feishan, who just got on the carriage. Qiu Feishan saw that Qin Yining's maid refused to leave, so she smiled and didn't care. But when she saw Qin Yining's slightly bulging belly, she couldn't help but look at her in surprise. Wang Fei is pregnant again. Qin Yining was wearing a pea-green robe. This robe was made after she gave birth to Zhao Gu'er and Han Gu'er. At that time, she was more plump. Now that she wore it, the rest of her body was much looser. Only the belly was just right. She sat in the carriage all day and liked to wear such loose and soft material. Her hair was simply tied up with a ribbon, looking very casual. So her pregnancy was very obvious at this time. Yes, it's been more than 4 months. If not, I would have followed Wang Yi to the battlefield. But Wang Yi didn't allow it. He insisted that I come to Jin Gang to nurture the baby. Qiu Feishan couldn't help but sigh with envy. Wang Fei is really lucky. She originally had no feelings for children, but now that she had Inga, although she still had to run Si Tong's shop, she had already divided her attention to the children. She also wanted to have a few more children, but unfortunately, Mu Jinghu was determined to not accept her anymore. Qin Yining saw Qiu Feishan's sad expression and said softly, "Boss Qiu, I have something to say. It's from the perspective of a friend, and also from the perspective of a woman. I don't know if you're willing to listen to me." Qiu Feishan nodded. "Wang Fei, please speak. I'm all ears." Qin Yining smiled and said, "Boss Qiu is a smart woman. You're very capable. Many men can't compare to you. You're in the business world and have a superior status. You've also developed a lot of pride and principles. These are all understandable. But Boss Qiu seems to have misjudged the human heart, especially a man who is equally outstanding and full of pride." Chapter 1133. Qin Yining laughed self-deprecatingly. "Boss Qiu, please don't blame me. I'm just being nosy." Qiu Feishan shook her head. "Princess Consort and Wang Yi must have their own ways to get along. It's my honor that you're willing to tell me. How can I blame you? I'm just a little disappointed." Qin Yining said, "Master Mu is from a famous sect, and his martial arts are outstanding. Perhaps he's not as resourceful as you, nor as wealthy as you, but he rarely meets a match in the martial arts world and has a mysterious sect behind him. Boss Qiu is a proud daughter of the heavens and has been superior since young. But perhaps Boss Qiu has forgotten that when husband and wife get along, they don't care about whose family background, high or low status. What they care about is the relationship and equality." Qiu Feishan only felt that Qin Yining's words stabbed at her heart, but she couldn't refute. She carefully reflected on herself. She was indeed too self-righteous. In her heart, she had always treated Mu Jinghu as a martial artist who could be easily manipulated. However, she did not expect that this martial artist had a very stubborn personality. She had accidentally hurt this person's heart. Qiu Feishan shook her head. "Princess Consort's words are very pertinent. I made a mistake first. Now, it's too late to redeem myself." Qin Yining saw that Qiu Feishan's attitude was good, and her words were very honest, so he said, "Master Mu values friendship the most. In fact, if Boss Qiu is willing to face the problem, this matter won't be difficult to solve. But I've already moved him emotionally, and I even brought up Brother Yin." Qin Yining shook his head. "He's angry because you deceived and used him. He felt that his sincerity was exchanged for a lie. If Boss Qiu only uses the child as the reason, I'm afraid this knot won't be resolved. Boss Qiu, you've been on the same boat for 10 years. You still have to cherish your fate." Qiu Feishan looked down thoughtfully, and after a while, she nodded. Her voice was a little low. "I understand. I need to face my own problems. I need to apologize to him and ask for his forgiveness and not blindly let him understand me, because I can see from my observations that he won't understand me." Suddenly looking at Qin Yining, Qiu Feishan said, "But to be honest, I don't think I did anything wrong. Everything I did was for his good. I believe that since Princess Consort is willing to talk to me here, she also understands this point." Qin Yining smiled and nodded. "That's right, I do understand. Moreover, the reason why I can speak to you so calmly is because you are not someone to me. I did not place any hopes on you, so I was not disappointed. What about young Master Mu?" Qiu Feishan suddenly raised her head and met Qin Yining's eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything. Her heart seemed to be in a perilous situation. Perhaps it was just as Qin Yining had said. This was the crux of the problem. Come to think of it, she did not apologize to Mu Jinghu because she did not think that she was in the wrong. If she wanted to get Mu Jinghu back, she had to do something. But the more Qiu Feishan thought about it, the more she felt wronged. Could it be that the reason she developed and strengthened the Qiu family was not for her and Mu Jinghu? Was it not for their child? Some things were indeed very important, but the most important thing should always be one's own interests. Perhaps this was the difference between her and Mu Jinghu. This man was always emotional. Qin Yining saw that Qiu Fei Shan's expression changed a few times, looking very troubled and conflicted, so he did not say anything more. Since he had already said it, he had already told Qiu Fei Shan the problem she had seen. In fact, he had already done his duty. Because Qiu Fei Shan did not only use and deceive Mu Jinghu, but she and Peng Xiao were open-minded and would not cause any trouble because of this. She was willing to talk to Qiu Fei Shan about this today. In fact, because of Mu Jinghu, the carriage slowly drove into the city until it reached the entrance of an alley. There was only one house in the alley. The door was open at this time, and Master Zhong was waiting with a few accompanying bodyguards with a smile. Seeing that Qin Yining had arrived, everyone bowed in unison. Princess Consort. Qin Yining smiled. Fortunately, Master Zhong came in advance and bought a house, so we did not have to find a suitable place to live here. As he spoke, Ji Yun and Bing Tang had already helped Qin Yining out of the carriage. Buying also helped Qiu Fei Shan out of the carriage. After hearing Qin Yining's words, Qiu Fei Shan knew that the trust between her and Qin Yining no longer existed. The house that she had previously arranged to be given to Qin Yining did not even care about Qin Yining. She was not angry or wronged, but she was disappointed. Coupled with the reasons that Qin Yining had mentioned, Qiu Fei Shan felt that even if she had been in the business world for many years, she still felt that this was a difficult problem. Fortunately, Qin Yining did not hide his residence. He had also generously brought her to the door, which more or less showed that Qin Yining could go hand in hand at this stage when they had a common goal. This could be considered as one of the things that had happened today that made her feel gratified. Boss Qiu, please come in and have a cup of tea with us. Then I will disturb Princess Consort. Qiu Fei Shan abandoned all idle thoughts. She could be sentimental, but she knew what she had to do now. Only by defeating the alliance between Taitan and Lu Hong could the Qiu family take a more stable route in the court, and their future development would be more stable. The Qiu family had been dormant for 100 years, although they were of the same breadth and branch as the Lu family, and had the same bloodline. After such a long time, they were already two different surnames, two different families. The Qiu family did not want to silently hide in the corner anymore, and it was time to switch places with the Lu family. However, she did not know if Lu Hong would have the strength to remain dormant after the Lu family was destroyed by Li Qitian. Qiu Fei Shan followed Qin Yining to the front hall, and her lips could not help but curl up into a faint smile as she pondered in the letter. Qin Yining turned back to look at her and saw her confident smile. He vaguely felt that Qiu Fei Shan must have thought of a good way to solve the problem between her and Mu Jinghu, so he did not say anything more and just chatted with her. After chatting for a while, the two of them became more intimate, and Qiu Fei Shan once again mentioned her purpose. Princess Consort, please listen to me. Wang Yi brought 280,000 soldiers to the South Pacifying Army to outflank the Taitan, and with Prince Consort Ji's original troops, the provisions provided by the court are not enough. The provisions allocated by the emperor must be obtained by Prince Consort Ji, who is closer. Wang Yi still has to provide his own provisions. Princess Consort is clear about the financial resources of the four links. Now that it is the aftermath of a disaster, it will not be easy for Princess Consort to gather provisions. At this time, why does Princess Consort and Wang Yi insist on the past? Those who achieve great things do not care about trifles. If you want to defeat the Taitan, you must first let the South Pacifying Army eat their fill. This way, it will be more convenient for Wang Yi to do things, and it will be easier for him to convince the people. Princess Consort is a smart person. You should understand that I am not lying. Wang Yi has also gone to the front lines. Is Princess Consort not worried about Wang Yi's safety and does not want Wang Yi to bring people to eat their fill before going to war? Qin Yining smiled as he listened to Qiu Fei Shan's words and could not help but sigh. It had to be said that Qiu Fei Shan's words were too tempting for her. She could not follow Peng Xiao to the battlefield, and the only thing she could do was to properly allocate provisions and military supplies. Her financial resources were limited, and her manpower was not as good as the four-way shop. If she had the help of the four-way shop, she would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. But even if they did not hate Qiu Fei Shan, did they not care about their self-esteem? Even if she could bow her head, Pang Xiao would definitely not bend. I understand Boss Qiu's intentions, and I am very moved. It's just that Wang Yi has his own principles, and he has already made arrangements, so I really can't intervene in this matter. I will pass on Boss Qiu's good intentions. She actually refused again. Qiu Fei Shan frowned and said, Princess Consort, forgive me for being blunt, but I really understand your and Wang Ye's thoughts. Such a good thing. Why do you have to repeatedly refuse? If the four-way shop wants to do this, it will not be a small amount. We also have good intentions. Qin Yining waved his hand to interrupt Qiu Fei Shan's words and said with a smile, Good intentions, good intentions, good intentions, these are not important. I am just a woman of the inner residence, and now I came to Golden Harbor to take care of the fetus. The matters on the battlefield, let the men do it. That was all. Qiu Fei Shan could not even find a reason to continue. If someone said that Qin Yining did not participate in the military provisions, she would not believe it even if she was beaten to death. But Qin Yining used this to brush her off, so she could not find anything to say. Qin Yining saw that Qiu Fei Shan's expression did not change, but there was anxiety in her eyes, and he understood. Why did the four-way shop have to fund the South Pacifying Army to attack the Titan? Why did they have to choose the team led by Pang Xiao? It was nothing more than seeing that Pang Xiao was a rare commodity worth hoarding, and they could have more backing in the future. Even if he wanted to eat, he had to have a way to do it. Qiu Fei Shan was still somewhat unwilling to leave, but in the end, seeing that Qin Yining was still unwilling to let go, she could only give up. She told Qin Yining her residence and the new location of the four-way shop in Golden Harbor, and then left first. Qin Yining ordered people to send her off, and he lay down on the chaise lounge by the window to rest. Bing Tang said, Wang Fei, why don't you let the four-way shop have its own initiative? Wang Yi can at least send it faster. Qin Yining slowly explained, some things, once started, can't be taken back. No matter what Wang Yi does in the future, we can't leave any evidence that can be used against us, and we can't let others have the opportunity to take advantage of us. Even if it's not easy to raise the provisions, we still have Mr. Xie. I believe that we can discuss it, and we won't let the South Pacifying Army starve. Bing Tang nodded in understanding. After Qiu Fei Shan left, she did not come to persuade him again. Qin Yining lived very comfortably, with Xie Yu representing Pang Xiao and Master Zhong representing herself. Everything was done very smoothly, and she could rest at ease. However, 2 months later, the weather gradually became hot, and Master Zhong looked for Qin Yining with a dignified expression. Wang Fei. Qin Yining was 6 months pregnant, and was walking around the courtyard accompanied by Ji Yun and Bing Tang. Hearing the sound, he turned around and smiled. Master Zhong is here. What's the matter? Chapter 1134. Qin Yining couldn't help but stop and ask worriedly, what strange thing happened? She couldn't be blamed for her nervousness. This was the time when the war was at its peak. Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu were working together. They were like a hot knife cutting through butter. Within 2 months, they had driven the Tatar troops away from the capital. They had also retreated all the way and recaptured several cities. Pang Xiao also saved many civilians, and more civilians volunteered to join the South Pacifying Army. Because Pang Xiao was leading the civilians to reclaim their homes, these people became more and more courageous in battle. Now the war was at its peak. When the two armies met, the South Pacifying Army had food to eat. How could Pang Xiao starve the Tiger Army that he had raised, even if he wasn't the commander of the Tiger Army? Therefore, in these 2 months, Qin Yining used the treasure to feed all the soldiers on the front lines who were fighting against the Titan. However, Li Qitian didn't do anything. He only cared about celebrating the recapture of the cities and didn't have any intention of increasing the food supply. Li Qitian's actions naturally caused many soldiers to be dissatisfied. However, when he issued a decree for the various armies to come to the capital, he had already made it clear that he wanted everyone to provide their own food. Since everyone had already come, it meant that they approved of his decree. At this time, even if they were dissatisfied, they could only swallow their anger. Especially when they saw that the South Pacifying Army and the Tiger Army were eating well and wearing good clothes, the other armies were envious. However, in order to feed so many people, the treasure had been used up. Qin Yining had taken out all the wealth he had accumulated over the years. The most important thing was that after the disaster, even if he wanted food, it wouldn't be easy to find it. These days, Qin Yining seemed to be living a comfortable life. He looked like he was focused on nourishing the fetus and waiting to give birth. However, he was actually very anxious. She couldn't do anything for Pang Xiao. The two of them were in different places. The only thing she could do was to make sure that he had enough food to eat, warm clothes to wear, and that he had medicine to treat his injuries in time. If she couldn't solve these problems, Pang Xiao's situation would be even worse. Qin Yining's mind was spinning 1,000 times, but in reality, in just a few breaths, Master Zhong had already walked in front of Qin Yining and said in a low voice, "Wang Fei, today a company called the Great Solar Grain Company took the initiative to look for me. They said that they have a large amount of stored grain for sale. I want to take a look. Not to mention that the grain was good. The price was even 30% cheaper than the grain we bought from Tianjin. They have so much food, but instead of hoarding it and selling at a high price, they're doing this. I find it really strange." However, when asked in detail, the man said that he wanted to contribute to Dezhou's imperial court by supporting the soldiers on the front lines and taking back Dezhou's land. "It's not like I haven't seen people who are so devoted to their country. You and Wang Yi are both like this, but I've never heard of the Daily Grain Company before. You suddenly came to me, as if you know I'm your trusted aide who specializes in running grain for you." Qin Yining frowned slightly when she heard this. Just as Master Zhong said, this situation was indeed strange. From her point of view, the other party took the initiative to extend an olive branch when the grain was in a difficult situation. It really solved a big problem. However, this help came too suddenly and too timely. It was as if someone had been watching her movements and acted according to the situation when she was at her most difficult. Thinking of this, Qin Yining vaguely guessed something. "I understand. I have a plan for this matter. The most important thing is to solve the problem of insufficient grain. Later, you can go and see Mr. Xie and discuss how to act as per the original plan." When Master Zhong saw that Qin Yining was so confident, he felt relieved. "In that case, I will do as Wang Fei says." Qin Yining nodded in agreement. After returning to the room, Qin Yining told Ji Yun, "Prepare brush and ink for me. Wang Fei wants to write a letter to Wang Yi again." Ji Yun smiled and scooped 2 spoonfuls of water into the inkstone. Then she twisted the ink stick and slowly slid it. Qin Yining held her stomach and sat down with the help of Bing Tang. "The battlefield is constantly changing. I really don't dare to disturb them. However, I still have to send a letter from time to time." Qin Yining's letters to home had always been about good news and not bad news. Pang Xiao was fighting on the front line. If she still made him worry about her and dragged down his energy, it would be too wrong. Therefore, the content of her letters was mostly gossip. She would also write about her current physical condition. At the end of this letter, she mentioned how the issue of the grain was resolved, directly stating that it was Qiu Feishan who helped. She didn't intend to claim credit and didn't directly come to talk about it, but directly sent someone to deliver the grain. Qin Yining did not know what the relationship between Qiu Feishan and Mu Jinghu was like. However, she always hoped that they could get along well. Even if it was not for each other, she had to take pity on Yin Ji. Perhaps she was being too soft-hearted. The food and letters were sent to the front line. The fastest speed would be 20 days. In the Southern Pacifying Army's camp, the banners were fluttering loudly. There were so many tents that one could not see the end of them. The food and supplies that were sent from outside the camp attracted everyone's attention. A man who had just joined the Southern Pacifying Army said emotionally, "These food were all prepared for us by Wang Yi. The food from the imperial court has not arrived. If it were not for Wang Yi watching over us, I'm afraid that we would have to fight the Tatars with empty stomachs." That's right. I don't know where the Tatan got the money. Not only are they strong in battle, they also eat better than us. Isn't it because the Liu family sided with the Titan? I originally thought that the Liu family was a good family. Now, it seems that they're scum who can ignore the safety of the imperial court for their own selfish reasons. What kind of aristocratic family is this? When they do things, they are simply not worthy of our attention. When the food was sent to various parts of the camp, Pang Xiao also looked at the letter. He passed the last page to Mu Jinghu, who was beside him. Take a look. Mu Jinghu took the letter with a strange expression. After reading the contents, his face twisted for a moment before returning to normal. Passing the letter back to Pang Xiao, Mu Jinghu lowered his head and was about to walk out of the tent. Pang Xiao hurriedly stopped him. Blockhead, actually, I know what you're thinking, but it's been so long. Boss Chiu has been writing you letters, but you've never been willing to read them. She did use you, but the past is the past. I don't plan to pursue it, so don't be calculative about it. Even if you consider Brother Yin, you should let go of what you should. Mu Jinghu shook his head. You don't understand. Pang Xiao pulled Mu Jinghu over and sat down casually with him. What do I not understand? We are all men. I also know that you have feelings for Boss Chiu. I followed Master's instructions and snatched her away. Mu Jinghu's voice was muffled. She comes from a prestigious family and is very smart. Many men are no match for her. I know how powerful she is and how capable she is, so I snatched such a woman to be my wife. At first, I didn't expect her to accept me immediately, but even though we have Brother Yin again, she is still the same. In front of her, I'm like a bad guy who stole her away. Her eyes are always full of contempt. She thinks that I don't understand many things, so she doesn't even tell me and makes the decision. She said that it was for my own good. But how can she be sure of what I think and what choice I should make? To put it bluntly, she doesn't think that I am a boorish man. She thinks that I am not from a prestigious family like her. I also forced her to marry me. I thought about it carefully. After such a long time, she might be tired of seeing me. She had no choice but to give birth to Brother Yin with me. Just thinking about it makes my head hurt. Mu Jinghu pursed his lips and said in a low voice, so after thinking about it, I will divorce her after our matters are settled. From then on, we will have nothing to do with each other. She can marry whoever she wants and leave Brother Yin to me. Mu Jinghu was not a talkative person. He was also not good at telling his secrets and thoughts to others. But today he said it very clearly. Pang Xiao did not understand what was going on between Mu Jinghu and Qiu Feishan in the past. Now that he heard Mu Jinghu say this, although he felt that Qiu Feishan might not look down on him as much as Mu Jinghu thought, but now that such an open-minded and loyal person like Mu Jinghu had felt such humiliation, it showed that there was a real problem between the husband and wife. Pang Xiao sighed. Even so, you can be a good father, but how can you be a good mother? Mu Jinghu was not convinced. If I take care of Brother Yin alone, I might be able to teach him better. Isn't it enough that he has me as his father? Of course not. You clearly have a way, so why do you have to fight with Boss Chiu? Even if she did something wrong, she has already realized your importance and has already tried to please you and apologize to you countless times. You are still as stubborn as a bull. Don't tell me you won't even give her a chance to turn over a new leaf. Mu Jinghu pursed his lips and remained silent. After a long time, he said, "We'll see." Hearing this, Pang Xiao was relieved. As long as he was willing to relent, things would only get better in the future. He patted Mu Jinghu's shoulder and went to find Ji Ziyu, Ma Cheng, and the others to discuss the next battle. There is less than half a day's journey from here to where the Dragon Legion is trapped. Si Qin and Lu Heng have already retreated. We can take advantage of this and completely rescue the rest of the Dragon Legion. This will increase our chances of winning. Ma Cheng's voice was low and he was in high spirits. Ji Ziyu did not immediately nod. Instead, he turned to look at Pang Xiao. What do you think? Pang Xiao crossed his arms and thought for a moment. Then, he shook his head. I feel that Tatan's motives are not pure. Maybe he is using the Dragon Legion to lure us into a trap. We need to save the Dragon Legion, but we cannot forget to fall into the trap. Ji Ziyu nodded. You are right. Although we have the advantage in numbers, we do not have enough supplies. We cannot afford to delay them. If we want to win, we have to win in one blow. Not only do we have to save the Dragon Legion and minimize the casualties, but we also have to think of a way to defeat Lu Heng. Chapter 1135. But the alliance between the Lu family and the Titan is so strong. They had a common goal before, so who would care about the small details? What should we do if we really want to shake their alliance? This is the most critical moment of the war. How should we break their alliance? Ma Cheng sighed. This is not an easy task. Pang Xiao recalled Lu Heng's usual behavior and said objectively, Lu Heng is indeed a troublesome opponent. He is very capable. If we want to use strategies to break the alliance between Lu Heng and Si Qin, we need to think about it carefully. But we can't wait now. Ji Ziyu pointed out the current situation without holding back. Pang Xiao naturally agreed with Ji Ziyu's judgment. However, he still said confidently and optimistically, don't worry. Let's deal with the current battle first. Their alliance must be built on mutual trust. If they can't trust each other in the future, their alliance will naturally fall apart. What we need to do now is to destroy their trust in each other. Ma Cheng and Ji Ziyu heard this and nodded at the same time. That's a good idea, Ji Ziyu said. Even if they have a common goal now, they're not of the same race. Whether it's Si Qin against Lu Heng or Lu Heng against Si Qin, they must be hiding a lot of thoughts in their hearts. Once they're discovered by the other party, it may be the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Pang Xiao called Su Weiji and a few other strategists over to discuss with Ji Ziyu's people. In the end, they came up with a meticulous plan. The next day, rumors started to spread in the army. Did you hear? Master Lu personally came to see Wang Yi yesterday. It seems like he wants to ask for peace. Master Lu is still from Dezhou. No matter what, he won't help the Titan bully our own people. And what about what he did before? In my opinion, he has the intention to do so. However, now that he has seen Wang Yi and Duke Ding working together, the Titan might not have a chance to win this war. It's understandable that Master Lu wants to use this opportunity to build a good relationship with them, right? Rumors and slanders had always been the fastest to spread. Pang Xiao had only given a general idea, but in the end, there were many versions of the rumor. Moreover, each version was logical and rigorous. It was even more believable than what Pang Xiao had said before. Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu didn't think that the rumors would spread. If they didn't come up with this idea in the beginning, even they would have believed that Lu Heng wanted to pledge allegiance to Dezhou. I'm almost convinced by this rumor. Ma Cheng stood in front of the tent with his arms crossed. He looked at the soldiers who had gathered to start a fire and were still discussing this matter in low voices. He turned around and asked Pang Xiao, Wang Yi, can this matter be spread to Titan Khan? It definitely can. Pang Xiao nodded confidently. Ma Cheng had always admired Pang Xiao, so he naturally believed Pang Xiao's words when he saw Pang Xiao speaking so confidently. He couldn't help but chuckle when he thought of the conflict between Tatar and Lu Heng. Just as Pang Xiao and the others expected, in the Titan camp, Si Qin listened to the spy's report calmly. Khan, please reconsider. After all, Lu Heng is from Dezhou. There's a saying in Dezhou, those who aren't of our race are sure to have different intentions. Lu Heng might betray us at any time. If he joins forces with Dezhou to deal with us, what should we do? Si Qin's face was still handsome. However, after fighting for several days and suffering humiliation after Titan's defeat, many of the court officials didn't understand him. Many of them were disloyal. Those who were eyeing his throne even brought up Inari's death to make an issue out of it. Everything wasn't going well for Si Qin. Even his face showed signs of dejection. It wasn't easy for him to gain the support of Beiji's old officials, led by the Lu family. That was how he was able to directly make a move and slap those old officials who didn't trust him in the face. However, now someone was telling him that Lu Heng actually had ulterior motives and could set him up at any time. How could Si Qin be in a good mood? If he saw Lu Heng now, he might wring his neck. Just as he was thinking this, someone outside the tent reported, Khan, Patriarch Lu is here. Si Qin's face darkened. Let him in. The curtain of the tent was lifted, and a graceful and handsome young man dressed in a silk robe with a net scarf on his head slowly walked in. Every movement of his revealed the background and strength of character of an aristocratic family. Just by looking at him, one could tell that he was extraordinary. Si-Chin stared at Lu Heng expressionlessly. He wanted to see what Lu Heng's intentions were. Lu Heng smiled and went straight to the point. I already know about those rumors. I guess that Khan might misunderstand, so I came to explain it to you personally. Si-Chin raised his eyebrows. Patriarch Lu, please speak. Lu Heng said calmly. Those rumors suddenly appeared. I have to say that Ji Ziyu and Pang Xiao together are much more difficult to deal with than either of them alone. Not to mention you, even I almost believed them. She wondered if she had come into contact with them at some point, but had forgotten about it. However, Khan, if you think about it carefully, you will understand that all of this is nonsense. The people of Dezhou and I have long been irreconcilable. Dezhou's fatuous ruler killed my people. The entire Lu family, which was a huge family, was slaughtered. Only a few people who followed me survived. If someone treated Khan like this, would Khan still be loyal to such a fatuous ruler? Moreover, I have already been labeled as a traitor. Even if I turn back now, with how suspicious Pang Zhishi is, how would he believe me? Since we have already shed all pretense of cordiality to this point, there is no turning back. Moreover, Tayton has been on the campaign these past few days, and I have used all of my power to support them. Khan is a smart person. Once you calm down and think about it carefully, you will know that the rumors cannot be trusted, because betraying Khan will not benefit me at all. Si-Chin was deep in thought. After calming down, he felt that Lu Heng's words made sense. With the temper of Dezhou's fatuous ruler, even if Lu Heng went back, he would only be condemned. There was no benefit for him to go back and pledge allegiance to Dezhou. However, after thinking about it, Lu Heng would not betray him and help Dezhou deal with him because there were no benefits. However, what if there came a day when helping Dezhou would benefit him more than helping him? Si-Chin did not believe that a person who could pledge allegiance to another race would have such noble moral integrity. At that time, he would most likely take the same path as Dezhou's fatuous ruler. However, they were currently facing a strong enemy, and the alliance could not be broken. Si-Chin nodded. Her tense shoulders relaxed, and her sitting posture became much more casual. What you said makes a certain amount of sense. However, you must be careful. Don't let Ben Khan catch evidence of your betrayal. Think about your family, and then think about yourself. Ben Khan is not afraid of Dezhou's 100,000 soldiers. Against you, he will definitely be able to catch you. Think about it carefully. Do you think you can escape? What Lu Heng hated the most was being threatened. However, he could not do anything now, so he could only smile and nod. He had funded Tayton, but he did not have any real power. However, seeing that his money was being used in the right place, his mood improved. After chatting with Si-Chin for a while, Lu Heng returned to his tent. In the military camp, Bien Ruhan's food and shelter were not as good as before. However, he still proudly adhered to his aristocratic habits. Even in the military camp, he still dressed up delicately. When Lu Heng saw Bien Ruhan's back view looking at the mirror, he was annoyed. If you dress up like this, then stay in the tent obediently. Don't go out and walk around. Bien Ruhan was wearing a palace flower in the mirror. He sneered and straightened the brightly colored peony flower. You think I won't go out just because you say so? What do you care? Lu Heng rubbed the space between her eyebrows and sat down on the wooden bed in exhaustion. She sneered and said, "We live in the barracks and are constantly being watched by the Totters. Do you know what kind of people the Totters in the barracks are? Those Tayton men don't know how to behave. If you still want to keep your innocence, then don't dress up so much and go out less. Don't embarrass me." Bien Ruhan's face turned pale. It was unknown whether it was out of fear or anger. She suddenly turned around and glared at Lu Heng. "I'm embarrassing you? No matter how embarrassing I am, I'm not so lowly as to beg for food in front of the Totters. If I get hurt in front of you, then it's because you're useless as a man." Lu Heng felt irritated whenever he saw Bien Ruhan. When he heard her yell, his heart was in a mess, and he could not think clearly. He did not want to argue with a woman and let the onlookers take advantage of it. He immediately got up to leave the tent. Yes, seeing that Lu Heng did not even listen to her and was about to leave, Bien Ruhan was flustered and exasperated. What are your thoughts? Ah, you dare say that everything you're doing now is for the Lu family? You're clearly doing it because of that slut. You're the one who doesn't like me. But who's the one who's going through thick and thin with you? You've lost your conscience. Bien Ruhan's words completely dug out the deepest secret in Lu Heng's heart. He remembered what the spies he had sent to Zhou to find out about Qin Yining's whereabouts had said this morning. His heart skipped a beat. She was pregnant again and was about to give birth. She only cared about Pang Xiao. Even when she was pregnant, she did not forget to help Pang Xiao gather food. He really envied Pang Xiao. He was able to receive a woman's sincere feelings and devotion. But what about him? All he received was vulgarity, noise, and clamor. Wenru, yes, patriarch, family head. Lu Wenru silently followed behind Lu Heng. Hearing the voice, he came forward and bowed. Send out a message. Have our people go to Golden Harbor and secretly protect Prince Zhongshuan's consort. Lu Wenru looked at Lu Heng in surprise. Chapter 1136. Hearing this, Lu Wenru's delicate face was full of sighs. He wanted to say something, but hesitated for a while. In the end, he couldn't help but say, Master, why are you doing this? No matter how much you do, you've already had so much fun with Prince Zhongshuan's consort. It's impossible now. You're a practical person. Why make things difficult for yourself for someone you can't have? How could Lu Heng not understand this? But when it came to matters of the heart, it was hard to control it. Perhaps he knew what he should do, but when things came to this, he couldn't help but worry about the person who would never agree to him. I know what you mean. I'm just following my heart. Whether she knows or not, it doesn't matter. In her heart, I'm already a traitor who can't be saved. Whether I do well or not, she doesn't care. Hearing Lu Heng say this, Lu Wenru's heart was extremely sour. The previously high-spirited and famous young talent of the capital, the most talented second master of the Lu family, had now fallen to this state. The current situation was definitely related to Lu Heng's longing for Prince Zhongshuan's consort. If he didn't love an impossible person, how could Lu Heng's judgment of the things he did be biased? Lu Wenru had followed Lu Heng for a long time and had always been loyal and never spoke much. Thus, even though his thoughts were very rich, he still didn't show it on his face. He only nodded calmly and didn't say anything else. Lu Heng looked into the distance with his hands behind his back. It was as if he could see Qin Yining through the mountains. These days, Qin Yining's life was also a bit difficult. In the beginning of autumn, the weather in Jingang gradually became cold. Qin Yining's stomach became bigger and bigger, and her entire person was very tired. After more than half a year of hard work, Golden Harbor's autumn harvest had yielded results. The people were strong enough to survive the natural disaster. The city gradually regained its prosperity, and Qin Yining's appetite gradually improved. However, when she was 8 months pregnant with the twins, her appetite was still good. Now, she was lazy to eat and exercise. Even their daily stroll had to be forced by Bingtang and Ji Yun to get up and walk around. Wang Fei, you can't be so lazy. When you're free, we have to walk around the courtyard a few times. That way, it will be easier for you to give birth in the future. Bingtang supported Qin Yining's arm and advised with a smile. Right now, you're working too hard. All day long, instead of thinking about how to take care of the children, they put all their efforts into preparing provisions for the front lines. How can this go on? Yes. Ji Yun supported Qin Yining's other arm and nodded in agreement. She joked. Wang Yi specially arranged for Sir Xie to come over for the matter of provisions. Sir Xie is definitely an expert at strategizing. You're still worried about leaving the preparation of the military to him? Qin Yining burst into laughter. Her unpowdered cheeks were much rounder because of Bingtang's careful care during pregnancy. Her smile became brighter. You two little hoofs, you only know how to tease me. If Sir Xie heard this, he would think that I don't trust him. Sir Xie has been with Wang Yi for a long time and is meticulous in his work. How can I not be at ease? I'm just worried about Wang Yi. I don't know what I can do for them. Bing Tang shook her head and sighed. Wang Fei's 2 pregnancies have been difficult. Neither of them have been able to catch up with Madame's peaceful days to rest. But Wang Fei has done well. This time it's twins again. If Wang Yi knew, I don't know how happy he would be. Qin Yining lowered her head and caressed her bulging abdomen. She shook her head. I don't plan to tell him yet. At first, I wasn't sure if it was a pregnancy pulse. Later on, my belly was much smaller than the previous pregnancy. Bing Tang couldn't tell if it was a twin from a pulse. It was only when my belly got bigger a few days ago that I was able to confirm it. I'm also afraid that something will go wrong and make him happy for nothing. He's on the battlefield and lives on the edge of a knife every day. How can he be distracted by such things? Bing Tang and Ji Yun both understood Qin Yining's feelings. The people they missed dearly were also fighting on the battlefield every day. They were also constantly worried. They didn't know if they would be injured or if they would be able to eat and wear warm clothes. On the other hand, women like them could only stay in Golden Harbor and couldn't get close to the front lines. Even if they went, they wouldn't be able to help. They could only pay attention to their own actions and not add to their worries. Ji Yun smiled and comforted Qin Yining. Wang Fei sometimes thinks too much, but Wang Yi might even like to worry about you. If it was someone else, Wang Yi wouldn't be bothered to think so much. Qin Yining smiled. Right now, the war is at its peak. He won't tell me, but hasn't the situation at the front lines already reached our ears? The Dragon Legion hasn't completely broken free yet. They don't have enough food. In addition, Lu Hong and Si Qin are both good at scheming. They are really in a dangerous situation now. Look, everything was fine. You're thinking about this again. We are all women. Even if we are worried, what can we do to help? Bing Tang smiled and then covered her mouth to say in a low voice, if you give birth to twins in the future, not to mention how happy Wang Yi will be when he finds out, even if the emperor knows, he might be jealous. What's so funny about that? Qin Yining said helplessly. This jealousy might become trouble for us. We have to be more careful in the future. Ji Yun and Bing Tang both sighed. When other women were pregnant, they had people at home to take care of them and wait for delivery. Only their Wang Fei had to worry about so many things. She also had to be on guard at all times to see if anyone was plotting against her. Wang Fei, how about we quietly move away and avoid those people? Jian asked in a low voice. There seemed to be little stars flashing in her eyes. She was very expectant. However, Qin Yining said, the enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. Even if we move, we can't say if the other party will follow us. At that time, it is very likely that we will be ambushed. It is better to stay here. Caressing her bulging abdomen, Qin Yining's eyes were full of expectation and gentleness. I just want to safely give birth to the children. When they're safely born, we can do whatever we want to do with less effort. Wang Fei, don't worry. We definitely will. Bing Tang and Ji Yun said with certainty. Xiaoyu gathered a batch of food and supplies and sent the list to Qin Yining. Wang Fei, please look. See if there is anything else we need to add. Qin Yining leaned back on the official's hat and looked down to flip through the list. Then he said with a smile, Sir Xie has always been meticulous in his work. I think there is no problem at all. This could be delivered. Okay, the autumn weather is gradually getting colder. Wang Yi and the others have now recovered their lost land and fought all the way to the vicinity of Heaven's Gate. I think they will be able to rescue the Dragon Stallion army trapped in the Canyon of Heaven's Gate in a few days. Dezhou's army will only grow stronger and stronger. Xiaoyu smiled and said, at that time, Wang Yi and Duke Ding will lead the Tiger Army and the Dragon Stallion Army respectively. Even if there are 100 Lu Hangs behind the Titan, even if they support it, they will not be able to resist these two godlike armies. Qin Yining nodded in agreement. Thinking about the future battle situation, although they still had to take one step at a time, at least the prospects were promising. After the food and supplies were delivered, Qin Yining received news from the front lines after another month. Wang Yi and Duke Ding's cooperation is a perfect combination. The Dragon Stallion army has returned to Duke Ding's command. The Titan have been chased out of Heaven's Gate and retreated to Tianshu Gate. Heaven's Gate, Tianshu, Tianlang, and Tianyu are the four gates of Dezhou. When they're successfully chased out of Tianyu Gate, it will be a true victory. Qin Yining only felt that victory was in sight. Even her breathing became much clearer. Perhaps it was because the hot summer had ended and the cool autumn had arrived. Even though she was about to reach full term, she still felt refreshed. The future was promising. She was not as tired as before, and her spirit was much better. This also made Bingtang and Ji Yun heave a sigh of relief. Qin Yining did not tell Pang Xiao about the possibility of giving birth to twins. However, Bingtang mentioned this in the letter he wrote to Huzi. When Huzi saw this paragraph, he immediately went to the main tent with the letter. Pang Xiao, Ji Ziyu, Ma Cheng, and Gao Wenliang were discussing what they should do next in front of the map. When they heard the sound of hurried footsteps outside the tent, they raised their heads vigilantly. Huzi only realized that he was a little too rash when he barged in. He hurriedly put the letter behind his back and smiled awkwardly. Pang Xiao saw that it was Huzi and then looked at Huzi's conflicted expression. He could not help but ask, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" "Wang Yi." Huzi touched his nose and said, "It's my fault for being rash. It's a private matter. I barged in a moment of desperation. I hope Wang Yi can forgive me." Pang Xiao originally wanted to scold Huzi. After all, they were in the military camp and not in the prince's residence. He could do whatever he wanted. However, when he thought about the letter he received from Qin Yining this morning, along with Bingtang and Ji Yun, Pang Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Huzi saw something in the letter? He said in a low voice to Ji Ziyu and the others, "Excuse me for a moment." Then he quickly walked towards Huzi and indicated for him to go out with him. When they were outside the main tent, he asked in a low voice, "Speak. What's wrong?" Wang Yi, Bingtang's letter today, said that the princess consort is pregnant with twins. What? Pang Xiao's voice suddenly rose. Everyone in the tent craned their necks to look. Huzi pointed at a sentence on the letter. "It's true." Bingtang said that the princess consort's body is not as strong as it was last year, but she is not homeless. Giving birth to twins shouldn't be a problem. She has been busy preparing recently and is very busy. The next time she writes to me will be after the young master or young miss is born. As he spoke, he counted with his fingers. Then he laughed loudly and said, "That's right. The next time I receive the princess consort's good news." Pang Xiao was dumbstruck for a moment. After a long time, he muttered, "She didn't tell me." Huzi stilled. Only then did he remember that the princess consort was not willing to mention this in the letter. He could not help but feel embarrassed. He seemed to have said too much. Chapter 1137. Pang Xiao stood there in a daze, his eyes staring blankly. Huzi felt more and more frightened as he looked at him. "Wang Yi, this is a good thing. Don't be too excited." Pang Xiao waved his hand. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, "Arrange for some more people to go to Golden Harbor to secretly protect Wang Fei." Huzi's expression turned cold. He nodded and said, "Yes." Pang Xiao turned and strode into the tent. His expression was grave as he said quickly, "We have to speed up. The longer the war drags on, the more disadvantageous it is for us." Ji Ziyu nodded in agreement. He carefully observed Pang Xiao's expression and knew that he must have known something. There was a 99% chance that there was news from Qin Yining. "Jishi, what's wrong?" Pang Xiao's thoughts had already drifted to Qin Yining's side. When he heard this, he reacted for a while. "Sister Yi is about to give birth. The doctor said that it's twins again. I want to end this war quickly." The longing that had accumulated in his heart and never revealed reached its peak when he learned that Qin Yining was pregnant with twins again and was about to give birth in a few days. How could he not miss her? It was just that he was busy fighting every day, reclaiming lost territory, and resisting the Titan. He had no choice but to suppress his longing for her. She had married him, but she had never lived the good life that he thought he would give her. She had followed him and wandered around in fear for so long. Now, she was going to the gates of hell again. She was going to give birth, but he was still in Heaven's Gate and could not accompany her at all. The last time Qin Yining gave birth, they were surrounded by danger. Pang Xiao still felt his scalp go numb when he thought about it. He really did not want anything to happen to Qin Yining. If something happened to Qin Yining this time, what should he do? He really needed to speed up so that he could reunite with Sister Yi sooner. Pang Xiao seemed to be lost in thought after he had answered. Ji Ziyu pursed his lips and said after a long while, "We must attack quickly. So, we must have a way to attack quickly. We can do it this way." Pang Xiao collected his thoughts and focused on discussing with Ji Ziyu and the others. As for Qin Yining's residence, he had also invited a famous midwife from Golden Harbor. "Your Highness, the delivery room has been prepared. The two famous midwives in Jinggang have also been invited and are now living in our fu. With me here, Wang Fei only needs to be at ease and will ensure that you and the children will be safe and sound." Qin Yining smiled and said, "With you around, I'm naturally at ease." Stroking his heavy abdomen, Qin Yining felt as if there was a rock pressing down on his chest. The closer she got to giving birth, the more swollen her legs and feet became. She could not even wear embroidered shoes now, because her feet were swollen by at least 2 times. But even so, she still had to be supported by Ji Yun and Bing Tang every day. Xiaoyu, on the other hand, took over the preparation of military supplies. If there was anything, he would discuss it with shopkeeper Zhong face to face, so Qin Yining didn't have to worry about it anymore. Qin Yining supported Ji Yun's hand and had to rest every few steps. He rubbed his sore waist and said, "I've been feeling uncomfortable these days. Not only that, I also have a bad premonition. Have Jing Zhe and Jinghu Wei carefully check the residence again. Don't let anyone take advantage of this opportunity to sneak in." Once she was about to give birth, everyone would be so busy that they would not be discovered so quickly even if someone sneaked in. What if an assassin sneaked in to assassinate her? Or what if someone sneaked in to steal her child? The more Qin Yining thought about it, the more worried he became. His brows were tightly knitted together. Bing Tang chuckled and said, "Princess Consort, you've already instructed us to do this several times. Jing Zhe and the others have already made arrangements. Don't worry, everyone is here. Nothing will happen." Qin Yining smiled bitterly and said, "You don't know. My premonitions about some bad things have always been very accurate. As long as I have a bad premonition about something, things will develop in a bad direction if I think it's bad. I don't want to be like this, but I can't help but worry. After all, Wang Yi and I have made too many enemies. I'm afraid that my child will suffer if something happens. Right? I can't let you suffer, right?" As Qin Yining spoke, he stroked his bulging abdomen. She knew that the child could not understand these words, but she still liked to communicate with the child in her womb. Bing Tang knew that this was a phenomenon unique to women who were about to give birth. They were always more worried than usual. "Don't worry, no one will barge in. If it really happens, Jinghu Wei and the secret agent will have to face the wall and reflect on their mistakes." Bing Tang deliberately teased Qin Yining. Qin Yining's lips curled into a smile as well. However, the worry in her heart could not be alleviated by a few words from others. She did not want others to worry about her, but it was not easy to control her emotions. She knew that her condition was not right. Perhaps it was because she was about to give birth? She would be fine after the child was born safely. Qin Yining comforted herself and continued to move around according to Bing Tang's instructions. The delivery date was a few days earlier than Bing Tang's prediction. On this day, Qin Yining had just washed up and was about to go to bed when he felt the urge to go to the toilet. She had no choice but to get up and walk out with Ji Yun's help. However, she had only taken a few steps when she felt something strange under her skirt. Ji Yun saw this and was afraid that Qin Yining would be nervous like her, so she did not dare to make a fuss. She only helped Qin Yining to sit down by the side and quickly walked out to find Bing Tang. When Bing Tang entered the room, he saw that Qin Yining's expression had eased slightly. After checking, he said, "Princess Consort, the children are about to be born. Shall we move to the delivery room? Why is it so early?" Qin Yining said worriedly. "Could it be that there's something wrong with the children?" "Of course not. Don't let your imagination run wild. Bing Tang hurriedly said, "All right, you're in good condition now. Let's take a few more steps while you still have the energy." Ji Yin said, "Why don't we let them prepare and let Princess Consort go on a roller coaster?" "That won't do. Princess Consort can move on her own. Why should she ride on a roller coaster?" "Princess Consort, listen to me. The more diligent you are now, the easier it will be when you give birth later. Not to mention that you can't ride on a roller coaster now. You still have to walk more later." Qin Yining nodded. She suddenly felt a throbbing pain in her abdomen and could not help but stop in her tracks. The unbearable pain spread. Fortunately, Qin Yining always knew how to endure and did not scream out loud. After enduring for a while, she slowly walked towards the delivery room that had already been prepared. Two midwives and Bing Tang served Qin Yining together. They gave her a birth-inducing medicine, changed her clothes, and helped her walk around the room. Qin Yining felt better sometimes, but the pain was severe at other times. "Princess Consort, if you feel uncomfortable, you can shout out. You'll feel much better if you shout out." Bing Tang saw Qin Yining like this and advised her worriedly. Qin Yining shook her head. "It's too tiring to shout out." A drop of sweat slid from her chin onto her clothes and dyed a small dark stain on her light red, wide-sleeved outer robe. Bing Tang thought and said, "The kitchen has prepared some nourishing soup for you. Use some later so you don't have too much energy." Qin Yining nodded and grabbed a handkerchief to wipe the cold sweat off her face. Then she continued to follow Bing Tang and the midwife's instructions. Compared to giving birth to Zhao Gu and Han Gu, Qin Yining's delivery this time was slightly smoother. However, she was still in pain for an entire day. It was not until the evening of the next day that the child's loud cries could be heard from the inner residence. Xiaoyu and Master Zhong were not in the mood to do proper work these 2 days. They were both worried about Qin Yining's situation. Master Zhong could be said to have watched Qin Yining grow up. Xiaoyu was devoted to Pang Xiao. Both of them were doing this for their respective masters. They understood that only when Wang Fei and Wang Yi were harmonious would they, as retainers, have good days. Therefore, when they heard the first cry, the two people who had been spinning around on the floor stopped in unison and looked anxiously in the direction of the inner residence. Even though they were the trusted aides of Qin Yining and Pang Xiao, there were differences between men and women. It was not good for them to ask directly. Not long after, there was a second loud cry. Xiaoyu and Master Zhong were stunned. They said in disbelief, "Did Princess Consort give birth to twins again?" Master Zhong and Xiaoyu exchanged a look and also had joy on their faces. "Quick, let's send a servant girl to ask." Right, quick, go ask. "How is Princess Consort's situation? Is it Master or Miss?" Xiaoyu and Master Zhong hurried the servant girl to ask in the inner residence. A short while later, she came back with good news. "Sirs, Princess Consort gave birth to twins. Right now, Princess Consort's situation is not bad. Master and Miss are also very healthy." "Really?" Xiaoyu clapped her hands. "Quick, grind the ink for me. I have to tell Wang Yi. Quick. It was good fortune to have more children." Wang Yi and Princess Consort were deeply in love and were not willing to take concubines. They did not have many children to begin with. Adding on the fact that so many things had happened at home, once Wang Yi ascended the throne in the future, they could not continue to have few children. At that time, even if Wang Yi did not intend to have any other women, they would still persuade him. But they did not expect that Princess Consort would be so capable. After giving birth to a pair of twins, she gave birth to a pair of twins. His Highness was currently in a tense situation, and a pair of twins was a good omen for the dragon and phoenix. Perhaps what they hoped for could really come true. Xiaoyu remembered the trust in Pang Zhao's eyes when he gathered his trusted aides and told them about how the family Qin and Yao family members had faked their deaths to escape. She remembered how Pang Xiao valued them and how grateful he was to them. She also remembered that no matter what danger Pang Xiao faced, he would not easily give up on any of them. He was such a benevolent lord, and now he had a pair of twins. This was a gift from the heavens to him. This was the good karma he deserved. Xiaoyu's eyes couldn't help but moisten. When he found out that the family Qin and Yao family members had secretly left their hometown to save their lives, he was very gratified. Now that he found out that Pang Xiao already had 3 sons and a daughter, he was even happier. His hands trembled, and he didn't even notice that the ink had dripped onto the letter because he was too excited. Xiaoyu wrote down his excitement and ordered someone to send it to the front lines at top speed. Qin Yining also heaved a sigh of relief and sent the good news to the front lines. Chapter 1138. After hearing such good news, Pang Xiao became even more anxious to end the battle quickly. The people around him noticed that his attacks were becoming more and more aggressive. Every battle, big or small, revealed a sense of surprise and ruthlessness. It was as if he used to be a sheathed sword, but now he was showing off his ability. Pang Xiao and Jiziyu also noticed some details on the battlefield. Why do I feel that the discord between Si Qin and Lu Hong has deepened? Pang Xiao whispered. You think so too? Jiziyu's words confirmed Pang Xiao's guess. It seems that what we did before is effective. Yes, they're not of the same race after all. They don't trust each other to begin with. The battlefield is constantly changing, and any small matter can affect the outcome of the battle. It is impossible for them to not care about their own safety. Naturally, they trust each other less and less. Pang Xiao laughed mockingly. He was even more confident about this battle. Looking at the recruits who were training seriously on the drill ground, Pang Xiao sighed. These recruits came here with a blood feud. We drove away the Tatan all the way here. The places we passed were once the homes of these recruits. At that time, when the Tatars marched straight into our territory, they were brutally slaughtered wherever they went. Who didn't want to avenge their family members who were lucky enough to escape alive? They fought with anger and determination to take revenge. It was as if they didn't care about their lives. The Tatan were familiar with their aura. It seemed that the day of driving the Tatan out of Dezhou was closer. Jiziyu saw Pang Xiao's confidence. He thought of the current situation of Pang Xiao's family and whispered, Have you named your son and daughter? I have. When Pang Xiao mentioned this, even his expression changed. My son is called Xiange, and my daughter is called Yinjie. Pang Rushuan and Pang Ruyun are both named Ru, in this generation of the Pang family. Jiziyu smiled. That's a nice name. The child will also be very good-looking. At the mention of children, Pang Xiao was a little excited and became more talkative. I've always preferred daughters. Daughters are obedient. It would be even better if they looked like their mother. To this day, I still remember Sister Yi's appearance when I first met her in Liang City. Back then, she was still very young. At such a young age, she was already thinking of ways to treat her foster mother's illness. If I were my daughter, I definitely wouldn't bear to let her suffer so much. Back then, I had too much ability to help Sister Yi and didn't participate in her life when she was young. Now, I can take care of a child who looks like Sister Yi. Pang Xiao spoke incoherently. The joy and hope in his words made Jiziyu shake his head and laugh. It's all thanks to your little miss that I can see you being so childish. Pang Xiao was taken aback for a moment before he burst into laughter. While the war was tense, Pang Xiao could always find joy and hope. Qin Yining went through his confinement with peace of mind under the care of Bing Tang and the others. I wonder what Wang Yi will name Little Master and Little Mississippi. Jian sat sideways by the window and looked at Brother Zhao, who was wrapped in the swaddling clothes of a big red magpie, looking around with wide eyes. She couldn't help but gently tap the other child's face with her finger. Qin Yining smiled and said, There's no rush. There's no rush to name the child. Previously, when I was in the countryside, the child was barely able to come up with a name when he was older. Haven't you always been in good health? Yes, I also heard that it's easy to raise a child with a cheap name. Therefore, many rich families deliberately give their children cheap names. Things like bolts, benches, and so on. Bing Tang couldn't help but laugh. But our little miss is as beautiful as a flower. It's not good to give her a vulgar and unpleasant name. Qin Yining was amused by Bing Tang's conflicted appearance. She even forgot the frustration of not washing her hair during confinement. Seeing Qin Yining smile, Bing Tang coaxed. Wang Fei, just hold on for a few more days. You'll be 17 in 3 days. When Gu'er and Jia are 1 month old, this servant will definitely serve you to bathe and dress you up. Right now, I'm not letting you wash your hair or open the window because I'm afraid you'll get sick. If you get sick during confinement, then you can only be cured during the next confinement. Does Wang Fei have to suffer every day? I know you're doing this for my own good. Qin Yining couldn't help but laugh. You're too careful. I'm fine. I know what to do at what time. The days passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the children were 1 month old. Due to the current tense situation, Qin Yining was worried that she wouldn't be able to protect the children if something happened. Therefore, she didn't hold a big celebration for the children's 3rd and 1 month old birthdays. She wanted to keep the children in her sight at all times, afraid that something would happen. She let the children follow her old path. On this day, Qin Yining had just ordered the wet nurse to bring the children over when Bing Tang quickly walked in and said with a smile, Wang Fei, Wang Ye's letter arrived. Quickly let me see. Qin Yining hurriedly stood up and took the letter. She opened it and said, Wang, you might have already thought of the children's names. Nowadays, the transmission of letters is much slower than before. It's making me wait. It's because Wang Yi and the others are driving the Titan people further and further away. Ji Yan also received Tang Xiu's letter. After she finished reading it, she walked in a very good mood. Qin Yining carefully read the letter and didn't miss a single word. Finally, she chewed on the 2 names Ru Xuan and Riyun and said with a smile, That's great. Ru Zhao, Ruin, Ru Xuan, and Ruyun. It's obvious that they're a family. After she finished speaking, she was a little worried for a long time. If Brother Zhao and Brother Han find out that they have a younger brother or sister, will they think that I don't care about them anymore? Ji Yun and Bing Tang laughed loudly when they heard this. Wang Fei is too careful. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Brother Zhao and Brother Han are already grown up. Moreover, they're by their maternal grandfather's side. How could they go astray? Thinking of her father's ability, Qin Yining was slightly relieved. In the blink of an eye, Brother Zhao and Brother Han are almost 4 years old, but I can't be by their side most of the time. Qin Yining was a little downcast. She walked to the side of the cradle and bent down to look at the twins who were sleeping soundly. I don't know when this kind of homeless life will end. In the future, when Brother Xian and Sister Yin grow up, I have to learn this lesson. She had experienced the most painful separation in the world. Her situation in the future shouldn't be worse than now, right? Just as Qin Yining was taking care of the children with peace of mind, the people that Pang Xiao secretly arranged outside, the Fu noticed something strange at the same time. It's really strange. Why are there more young men walking on Golden Harbor Street than before? That's right. Didn't most people go with Wang Yi to fight the Titans? Now that there are suddenly so many new faces, it's really strange. Should we tell Sir Xie about this? Of course we should. Wang Yi arranged to secretly protect Wang Fei, but it's not necessary to hide it from Wang Fei. Right now, the situation is tense. It's best to be safe. The Jinghui discussed and decided that one person would go to Xieyu to report. The others would continue to guard their original positions. When Xieyu learned of this matter, she didn't dare to conceal it and immediately went to tell Qin Yining. Qin Yining was holding Sister Yun in her arms and gently rocking her. Hearing this, her hands paused. She hesitantly said, This matter is really not simple. These people may have come with a purpose. It's very likely that they are targeting us. Yes. Xieyu's expression was serious as she said, Wang Fei, don't worry. I've already ordered people to set up a tight defense. I won't let anyone plot against us. But at this time, if we can get in touch with Magistrate Shun, it will be safer. You and Wang Yi have done so much for the people. Magistrate Shun is a straightforward and loyal person. He will definitely remember what you and Wang Yi have done and do his best to protect you. Magistrate Shun has people from Yamen in his hands. It will be more convenient for him to act. Sir Xie is very right. Qin Yining nodded in agreement. I'll have to trouble Sir Xie to make a trip. Of course. Wang Fei, don't worry. Xie Yu bowed and left. Qin Yining was in a daze as she held Sister Yin. She was certain that these people who suddenly came to Golden Harbor were targeting her. Her first suspicion was Li Qitian. Li Qitian was very jealous. It was difficult for him to have children. Now that Pang Xiao had a pair of twins, Li Qitian was very jealous. It was possible that he would kill them because of this. Qin Yining was very worried. She was not afraid of anything. But Brother Xian and Sister Yun were still in swaddling clothes. How could they stand the friction and bumps? Just as Qin Yining expected. At this time, Li Qitian received the good news from the front line. Although he had a satisfied smile on his face, he had been suppressing a fire in his heart. Thanks to Prince Zhongshuan's bravery and good fighting skills, Taitan has finally been driven out of Tianyu Pass. From now on, Dezhou's territory is still Dezhou. No foreign enemy can invade. That's right. It's also thanks to your majesty, who knows how to use people well. The officials were jubilant. There was nothing more exciting than driving out foreign enemies. When these people were praising Prince Zhongshuan, they did not forget to flatter Li Qitian. However, listening to the officials praising Pang Xiao, Li Qitian did not refute because he wanted to show his grace. He was now the emperor, so it was not convenient for him to personally lead the army. Otherwise, if he led the army, it would not be much worse than Pang Xiao's. With so many people, the Taitan people were naturally scared witless and obediently hid out of Tianyu Pass. Everything was fine, but all the credit had been taken by him. It was really tiresome. In the imperial court, Li Qitian had a belly full of anger. Who knew that when he returned to the imperial study, he would receive a letter from the spies? The Qin clan actually gave birth to twins for Pang Xiao. Li Qitian's eyes were like bronze bells. He gritted his teeth and glared at the spies. The spies bowed their heads and said, yes. He doesn't deserve it. Li Qitian was furious. He raised his hand and grabbed the inkstone on the table and smashed it against the corner of the wall. He then kicked over the high table in the corner. The blue and white porcelain vase on top of it fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Your Majesty, please quell your anger. Xiong Jin Shui and the other eunuchs did not care about the broken porcelain on the ground and hurriedly kowtowed respectfully. Your Majesty, please quell your anger. How could Li Qitian quell his anger? What he hated the most was that he was already the emperor, but there were always people who felt that he could not compare to Pang Xiao. Now, there was no movement from his imperial harem, but Pang Xiao had a bunch of twins and phoenixes. Who did he think he was? Did he deserve to have twins and phoenixes? Chapter 1139. Li Qitian's face was ferocious, scaring the spies, Xiong Jin Shui, and the other eunuchs in his silence. They buried their heads tightly and didn't dare to look at your Majesty's face. It doesn't matter if they look now, but if something happens in the future and your Majesty loses face, wouldn't it be their fault? Li Qitian paced back and forth with his hand behind his back, his face gloomy. At this moment, a young eunuch's joyful voice suddenly came from outside. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager's head palace maid came. She said that the Empress Dowager was very happy to hear that Prince Zhongshuan and Duke Dinghua defeated the Taitan and drove them out of Dezhou so quickly. Today, the Empress Dowager is going to hold a banquet in Xi'ai and palace to celebrate the victory. She asked if your Majesty is free to go and have a family banquet together. Celebrate, celebrate. What's there to celebrate? Wasn't it normal that Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu could drive the Taitan out of Dezhou? If it were him, he might be faster. How could he deserve so many people's praise? Li Qitian's face was dark. After a long time, he said patiently, Jin knows. The young eunuch didn't know that Li Qitian had just lost his temper and thought that he was also happy to recover the lost territory. Therefore, she happily agreed and turned around to quickly deliver the letter to San Palace. Xiong Jin Shui, who was kneeling on the ground, was so nervous that his muscles tightened. He was afraid that the emperor would vent his anger on them in the blink of an eye. It would be good to beat them up, but it was also possible to drag them out and behead them. Li Qitian gritted his teeth and endured for a long time to suppress his anger. He couldn't show his anger and jealousy outside because it would lower his status. He wanted to be a wise prince, and being able to tolerate his subjects was his greatest advantage. It was about time Li Qitian took Xiong Jinshui to Xi'an Palace, who knew that as soon as they arrived at the palace gate, they saw the courtyard of Xi'an Palace decorated with lanterns and colored banners from afar. At first glance, Li Qitian thought that he was celebrating the new year. At the palace gate, the palace maid of Xi'an Palace saw Li Qitian from afar and hurriedly ordered someone to inform the Empress Dowager. The others all knelt down and saluted. "This servant pays her respects to your majesty." With a cold face, he strode into the courtyard of Xi'an Palace. Even the palace maids' clothes, ants' clothes. Even the palace maids, who usually dressed and SSSSSS ants SSSS. 2. SSSS. Li Qitian became even angrier when he thought of how the common people worshiped Pang Xiao as a god of war and even forgot that he was the emperor of Dezhou. When it came to Pang Xiao matters, one was always the bane of the other. From Tian Jizi's criticism of the imperial star to the current situation, Li Qitian was almost numb to Pang Xiao matters. However, when it came to the situation in the Xi'an Palace, all that was left was unwillingness. Because these ignorant women who didn't know anything about the situation wouldn't understand at all if you tried to reason with them. Instead, you would only end up angering yourself to death. "Brother, you're here." Upon hearing the palace servant's message, Li Helan quickly walked out to greet her. She bent her knees and bowed. Her exquisitely made-up face looked very festive. Li Qitian suppressed his anger and answered, "Yes." Li Helan smiled and said, "The Dezhou dynasty is finally peaceful again. This is all thanks to Imperial Brother for giving Alan chance." Li Qitian cast a sidelong glance at Li Helan. "I thought you would mention Pang Zhishi." Li Helan's expression showed a moment of displeasure, but in front of Li Qitian, she had always been able to control herself well. "Imperial Brother, you must be joking. Jilan is the prince consort. It's good that you understand. Don't pester Pang Zhishi like before. Even though his entire family is dead, he really dotes on the Qin clan. You don't know this yet, do you?" Li Qitian suddenly stopped and told Li Helan the news he had just heard. The Qin clan gave birth to a pair of twins. Li Helan's eyes widened and she stopped in her tracks. She said in disbelief, "Imperial Brother, didn't their twins die?" "Yes, but the Qin clan is really good at giving birth. They gave birth to a pair of twins for Pang Zhishi." Li Qitian's heart was filled with jealousy, and he couldn't help but speak harshly. "You've been married to Jilan for so long. She has 2 children and 4. Look at yourself. You're also a woman. Why can't you do it?" Li Helan's face flushed red. She bit her lip and looked up at Li Qitian in disbelief. When Li Qitian saw Li Helan like this, he strangely felt much better. He walked all the way to the main hall. The imperial concubines and the empress were all gathered here. Everyone was dressed in bright clothes, and they all bowed when they saw Li Qitian. Li Qitian's eyes swept over the imperial concubines who were like flowers, especially those who were dressed more jubilantly than the new year. The irritation in his heart was about to reach its peak. The empress knew Li Qitian the best. She knew that he had always been jealous of Pang Zhishi, so she didn't plan to come today. However, she couldn't disobey the Empress Dowager's orders. She also couldn't tell Li Qitian's thoughts to the public. When she saw Li Qitian's expression, her heart skipped a beat. She quickly retreated without leaving a trace. "Imperial Mother." Li Qitian bowed to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager was wearing a peacock blue robe and a full set of golden cicada head ornaments. Her entire face was glowing, as if she had suddenly become 10 years younger. When she saw Li Qitian, she helped her son up with a smile. "Quickly get up, quickly get up. Your Majesty's ability is great." He arranged for the right people. Tayton was driven out so quickly. When I heard the news, I was very happy. Let's celebrate today. Your Majesty shouldn't only care about government affairs. Take this as a chance to rest. When the Empress heard the Empress Dowager say this, she knew that Li Qitian wouldn't be happy. She lowered her head even more and carefully thought about how she should leave early. Li Qitian suppressed his impatience and said a few words to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager said with emotion, "After all, we are friends who fought together. Although Pang Zhishi is sometimes a bit arrogant, he is still very capable when it comes to fighting. How does your Majesty plan to reward him this time?" The string in Li Qitian's heart that was stretched taut had been touched several times when he accompanied the Empress Dowager to talk about the front line. Now that he heard this, he finally broke out after enduring for a long time. He's just doing what he should do and doing what he should do. If this court official does what he should do and comes to me for a reward, how should I deal with him? Li Qitian's tone was too cold. The entire side hall was originally filled with laughter, but as soon as these words came out, it immediately became so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. The Empress Dowager blinked several times to completely suppress the shock of being humiliated by her son in public. She then realized that she seemed to have misunderstood the Emperor's intention. The Empress Dowager smiled awkwardly and said, "The Emperor is right. I have lived in the palace for a long time, and my knowledge is limited. There are some things that I don't understand. If I have said something wrong, please don't blame me." All the concubines lowered their heads. No matter how stupid they were, they knew that no one could stand out at this time. Once they did, they might not have a chance to turn things around in this life. Li Qitian looked around and glanced at the concubines with dissatisfaction. Finally, his eyes fell on the Empress Dowager. Imperial Mother has lived in the palace for a long time and doesn't understand anything. Imperial Mother should know that internal energy is not allowed to interfere in politics, right? I didn't argue with Imperial Mother's clan about that matter in the past. Imperial Mother must have forgotten already, right? The Empress Dowager's expression changed greatly, and her hands trembled. Yes, the Emperor is right. I am old and don't understand too many things. I only said more because I care about the Emperor. Li Qitian sneered. Is that so? Imperial Mother's health is important. You should think more about yourself. Xi'an Palace also has a small Buddhist hall. Later, I will have people decorate the Buddhist hall in a way that Imperial Mother likes. If you have nothing to do, you should stay in the Buddhist hall more. Eat vegetarian food, chant Buddhist scriptures, and copy scriptures. Only when your heart is calm can you be at peace. Don't you think so? Li Qitian was grounding the Empress Dowager. The Empress lowered her head even more, afraid to meet Li Qitian's eyes. But Li Qitian didn't care how these concubines looked at him. He smiled and said, "You too. If you have nothing to do, you should cultivate your moral character. The imperial court is not rich right now, and the national treasury and internal funds are tight because of the war. But you all only know how to dress up like Xiao Xiao and walk around. Don't you have anything to do after eating? If you have time, you should do more needlework or chant Buddhist scriptures with the Empress Dowager. If you have nothing to do, don't walk around and cause trouble." Qinxia obeys the Emperor's decree. The concubines knelt down in unison. Li Qitian stood up and brushed the non-existent dust off his robe. Zhen is busy with government affairs, so Zhen will leave first. How could the Empress Dowager dare to ask about the family banquet? The Emperor had just said to be frugal, so she didn't dare to eat this family banquet. The Empress Dowager said that she was tired and told everyone to disperse. The Empress left Xi'ai and palace and returned to her own Qinquan palace. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. Nyang Nyang, this servant heard that Prince Zhongshuan's consort gave birth to a pair of twins for Prince Zhongshuan. Who did you hear it from? It was the Emperor's little chamberlain who unintentionally said it. The Empress raised her hand and waved the head palace maid away. She smiled helplessly. No wonder the Emperor was so abnormal today. He couldn't hide his jealousy. Thinking of Pang Xiao, the Empress couldn't help but think of the time she spent with Pang Xiao on the other side of the suspension bridge. Now that she thought about it, it was simply a dream. But based on her understanding of Li Qitian, how could he vent his anger by just throwing a tantrum? Next, the Emperor would definitely do something to Pang Zhishi. And she was just a harem girl, so she couldn't help at all. The news that Pang Xiao and Ji Ziyu worked together to expel the Taitan and drove them all the way out of Tianyu Pass spread all over the capital. For a time, the fame of Prince Zhongshuan and Duke Dingwa's god of war was in the limelight. Even the ignorant children knew that when they grew up, they would be brave and brave like Prince Zhongshuan and serve the country and the people. The spies kept inquiring about the people's opinions, and it continuously passed into Li Qitian's ears. He felt that his patience was reaching its limit. He couldn't give Pang Xiao another chance to perform. Chapter 1140. Your Majesty, this official thinks that this matter is inappropriate. At the imperial court, the officials were very surprised by Li Qitian's decision. The more straightforward ones, who had argued with Li Qitian many times about Pang Xiao becoming the commander-in-chief of the Tiger Army, immediately stood up. The Taytan invaded our land and slaughtered our people. How can their crimes be washed clean by expelling them from Zhou? Yes, Your Majesty. Someone seconded. This official thinks that now is the time to pursue the victory and eliminate future troubles. Since the Taytan have already made a move against the Zhou, they should be prepared to suffer the retaliation of our Zhou soldiers. If we can't kill all the evil Taytan, how can the imperial court explain to the people who were persecuted by the Taytan? This time, the Taytan traveled all the way from Tianyu Pass to the outside of the capital. Along the way, they burned, killed, looted, and didn't shrink from any crime. They slaughtered many cities. Later on, those who were willing to follow Prince Zhongshuan to fight the Taytans did so for revenge. If Your Majesty doesn't agree, first, you will let the tiger return to the mountain and waste the advantage that Prince Zhongshuan gained. Second, you won't be able to explain to so many people, and the people's discussion won't be good. Your Majesty, please reconsider. Your Majesty, please reconsider. Many officials echoed in unison. Li Qitian gritted his teeth and clenched his fist to prevent himself from scolding in front of the imperial court and degrading his status as the emperor. However, the anger in his heart was already showing signs of setting the prairie ablaze. Li Qitian didn't want to show his irritable side in front of others, so it was extremely difficult for him to suppress his emotions and endure. Seeing that the emperor didn't say anything, many officials who knew Li Qitian's temperament realized that today's topic wasn't the emperor's favorite. Even the most upright officials saw that the emperor was so silent and knew that there must be a reason behind it. The imperial court was silent for a while. After a long time, Li Qitian said, "My beloved officials, your words are reasonable. If I don't take revenge for the Taytan's rebellion, I'm afraid everyone in the world will call me a coward. We should also empathize with those who treat revenge as their spiritual pillar." Li Qitian's voice was extremely calm. However, the ministers could already tell from his tone that something was wrong. Tianzi wasn't someone who was easy to negotiate with. He had shown a great desire for power and control in the affairs of the court. Now that he was actually speaking according to the wishes of his subjects, everyone knew that there must be something else going on. Sure enough, Li Qitian said, "Dear ministers, is there a way to satisfy both sides?" This question seemed to be unclear, but Li Qitai's fans immediately understood what the emperor meant. Immediately, someone stood out and said in a clear voice, "Your Majesty, this subject has a different opinion from the other lords. Prince Zhongshuan already had a record of colluding with the ministers inside and outside the court, as well as the wealthy commoners, to oppose the imperial court. At that time, if Prince Zhongshuan didn't order people to monopolize the provisions, with Duke Dingwa's ability, how could the Tatars attack? This subject agrees. Prince Zhongshuan privately brought his troops here, but unexpectedly it was so easy for him to beat back the enemy. It's hard to say that he didn't have any shady deals with the Tatars in the dark. Perhaps all of this is just an act. Right now, the Southern Pacifying Army alone has gathered more than 400,000 people. If Prince Zhongshuan wants to rebel, I'm afraid he will be caught unprepared. Fart, fart. Big stinky fart. Some generals couldn't bear to hear this person's foul language maliciously smearing Pang Zhao's name. They immediately jumped out and pointed at the several ministers who spoke in front of them and angrily roared, "If it weren't for Prince Zhongshuan, would you still be standing here slandering him today? When he was fighting for the country, you were raised by the Prince Zhongshuan like vermin. What qualifications do you have to stand out and slander Prince Zhongshuan? Boorish man. A boorish man, like you speaking in front of your majesty, is simply dirtying your majesty's ears. You are the treacherous minister who is full of shit. Despicable. Li Qiqian rubbed his temples. Listening to the people below arguing about Pang Xiao, he became more and more impatient. If it was a normal day, he would be able to keep calm. However, these days, things didn't go his way. Li Qiqian was so angry that he wished he could directly capture Pang Xiao and kill him. Now, looking at the noisy ministers below, and then looking at those cunning old foxes who refused to express their opinions, he felt a wave of disgust in his heart. No matter how they discussed it, it was always like this. When it came to Pang Xiao, there was no smooth sailing. Li Qiqian covered his mouth and coughed. Xiong Jinshui's forehead was already covered in sweat. Seeing your majesty's movements, he immediately shouted, "Quiet!" The ministers who were originally expressing their own opinions immediately stopped arguing. They didn't dare to say another word in front of the emperor. Li Qiqian said the second half of what he wanted to say with satisfaction. Prince Zhongshuan has really worked hard in this fierce battle against Tayton. I can't bear to let him continue to risk his life on the front line. In addition, I haven't seen him these days, and I really miss him very much. Therefore, I have decided to give full authority to pursue Tayton to Duke Dinghua and urgently summon Prince Zhongshuan back to the capital to report on his work. I don't know what you think. Everyone's heart skipped a beat when they heard this. They all understood that your majesty was planning to punish the meritorious ministers. A straightforward general immediately shouted, "Your majesty, this minister thinks that replacing Prince Zhongshuan at the last minute is a great disadvantage for Dezhou. Tayton has long been scared witless. If you call people now, I'm afraid that Tayton will rise from the ashes again." A minister who figured out His Majesty's intention immediately retorted, "Isn't Duke Dinghua a brave and good god of war? You are doubting Duke Dinghua's ability and also doubting your Majesty's decision. You're a pedantic scholar who is simply twisting words and forcing logic. Your Majesty is doing this for the stability of the imperial court, not for a certain person. If you want to take advantage of this opportunity to use your Majesty's hand to eliminate dissidents, then you're wrong." Seeing that the ministers were about to quarrel again, Li Qiqian's impatience was almost written on his face. Silence. Xiong Jinshui observed Li Qiqian's expression. Seeing that Li Qiqian was so unhappy, he hurriedly shouted to stop the ministers quarreling. Everyone raised their eyes to look at Li Qiqian, who was sitting on the imperial steps, and realized that your Majesty didn't seem to want Prince Zhongshuan to continue guarding the border. It's just that the war is almost over. When it's almost time to award the merit, your Majesty is remote and doesn't want Prince Zhongshuan to finish the war, as if he's afraid that he'll get some merit. However, the emperor was already displeased. Since he was willing to make such a request, he had already made a decision. No matter how much they said, they couldn't change the fact. Instead, they would anger the emperor. No one knew what would happen. Even the most reckless people knew that they couldn't continue to anger the emperor. Therefore, under the emperor's high and mighty gaze, no one dared to refute. Li Qiqian's decree was immediately drafted into a memorial. With the excuse of letting Prince Zhongshuan recuperate, he urgently summoned Prince Zhongshuan back to the capital. The decree was sent to the border at top speed. At this time, Pang Xiao and Jiziu's group had just finished a battle. The Tayton people had set up their tents far away. Under the sunlight, the white tents looked like a sea of foam. Jiziu looked into the distance and then sighed in a low voice. "Fortunately, we seized the opportunity and drove them out. Otherwise, it's hard to say who would win and who would lose." Pang Xiao nodded and smiled. "That's right. With Lu Heng here, it's really hard to say what will happen on the battlefield." Just as the two of them quietly let out a sigh of relief, Huzi led a young eunuch over with a serious expression. It was the young eunuch's first time delivering an imperial decree. As soon as he saw Pang Xiao, he was immediately intimidated by the biting cold aura around him. He was so scared that his legs and stomach cramped. He was afraid that he couldn't even speak a complete sentence. Pang Xiao knew that these eunuchs who delivered imperial decrees would cause displeasure on both sides if they encountered an imperial decree from your majesty. An experienced eunuch would never rush out. Thinking about it, this young eunuch in front of him was only 16 or 17 years old. He was considered young in the harem. Wang Yi, this servant is here to deliver your majesty's decree. The young eunuch presented the decree with both hands. This surprised Pang Xiao. After all, every time Xiong Jinshui came to deliver a message, he would carefully read the imperial decree. He didn't care if your majesty's words were reasonable or not. He had to be careful not to let the young eunuchs see any clues. At that time, Xiong Jinshui would use a high and mighty tone to choose him. Pang Xiao opened the imperial decree and read 10 lines at a glance. He raised his sword-like eyebrows. Jiziyu saw Pang Xiao's abnormality and couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Does your majesty have other orders?" "Your majesty wants me to return to the palace. He says that he's afraid that I'll be too tired here. He wants me to immediately rush back to the capital to recuperate." Jiziyu raised his eyebrows and took the letter. He looked at it and asked, "What do you plan to do? Do you really want to return to the capital?" Pang Xiao's expression didn't change as he lowered his eyes. "If I really go back this time, I'm afraid that I won't be able to come out in the future." Jiziyu's expression darkened. He cast a sidelong glance at the young eunuch standing to the side. The young eunuch trembled in fear and couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Jiziyu whispered in Pang Xiao's ear, "You also think that this trip is bad?" "Yes." Pang Xiao shook the imperial decree. It's a big taboo in the military to change the commander in the middle of a battle. The emperor also came from a military background. It's impossible that he doesn't know this. But he still issued such a decree. This means that he has already made up his mind. I think that something must have provoked the emperor and made him make such a decision. Jiziyu thought for a moment and said, "At the very least, it's jealousy." Pang Xiao smiled bitterly. "Would I have to make others jealous? The emperor's personality is like that. He doesn't look at what he has. He only looks at what others have more than him. Let's not talk about other things. The emperor is selfish and weak, and your Qin clan just gave birth to a pair of twins for you." The Son of Heaven delayed the war for his own selfish reasons, but you led the army to drive the Tatars out of the Great Zhou. This kind of comparison is enough to make the Son of Heaven hold a grudge. Pang Xiao couldn't help but admit that Jiziyu's words were right. But he felt that even if Li Qiqian was jealous, he would do his best to suppress it in front of others. He wouldn't be in such a hurry to change the commander and summon him back to the capital. He wouldn't even care about his reputation. This was enough to show the danger this time. Jiziyu asked, "What do you plan to do? Are you really going to accept the imperial decree and go back?" Pang Xiao hesitated for a moment. If he didn't go back, Li Qiqian would have something to say. They could accuse him however they wanted. Because he wasn't in the capital, he couldn't control what people said. If something bad were spread, his reputation would be completely ruined. But if he went back, Pang Xiao knew that this time, it wouldn't bode well. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.